All right, it's 5 o'clock. Thank you all for coming. This regular meeting of the Carefree Town Council will come to order. Please take a silent roll call. Is Councilman Johnson on the line? Great, thank you. So we have 7 council people in attendance. Captain Letourneau, please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. And I would just remind everyone on the council and in the audience, when you come up to speak directly into the microphone so everyone can hear you here in the town council chambers, but as well as home, because we stream these meetings and record them. First item up on the agenda is the consent agenda. All items listed hereunder are considered to be routine by the town council and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member so requests, in which event the item will be removed from the consent agenda and will be discussed separately. Number 1, approval of the February 6, 2024 Town Council meeting minutes. Number 2, approval of the February 20th, 2024 budget workshop minutes. Item 3, acceptance into the public record of the February 2024 paid bills. Item number 4, acceptance of the cash receipts and disbursements report for December 2023. Are there any of these items that the council would like to have removed from the consent agenda? So hearing none, I would accept a motion to approve items 1, 2, 3, and 4 on the consent agenda.
Motion to approve items 1 through 4 on the consent agenda.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It passes unanimously. Thank you. Current events. Okay, Vice Mayor.
Yeah, hi. We have a few things coming up. First of all, this coming... Oh.
Here.
Can you hear me now? Okay. So there are a number of things coming up. First of all, this Saturday is the Kiwanis Club of Carefree. They'll be holding their annual pancake breakfast in the Sanderson Lincoln Pavilion from 7 to 11. It's all-you-can-eat pancake syrup and berry compote, sausages, orange juice, fruit, and tea, $15 for adults and $5 for kids, and it is excellent. We have the last of the Thunderbird Fine Art and Wine Festivals coming up. It'll be Friday, March 22nd through Sunday, March 24th from 10 to 5. As most of you know, this is a juried fine art festival in partnership with the Veterans Heritage Project. It will feature 155 world-class artists from across the globe, live music, wine tasting, and I guess we can carry the wine around with us while we're enjoying the show as long as we stay within designated areas. Our next garden seminar is the third one is Saturday, March 9th at 9:30 in the Town Council Chambers. That's right here. Learn about beautiful design in small spaces with speaker Katie Coates. Smaller spaces like a small yard, courtyard, balcony, patio. Knowing the right plant for the right place is essential to creating the ideal space to bring more success and enjoyment to how you live outside. There's a $5 donation request. And we're currently in the process of street maintenance. We've had to postpone a couple of times. It depends on the weather. If it's too cold or if it's raining, we can't do it. So we'll be hoping to finish that up in the next few weeks. Actually, they start again on Monday, March 11th. And if you still don't have and would like to have town emails, please sign up on our website, carefree.org. Thank you.
Okay, and a few other things. So we're going to do our 7th Carefree Conversations on Friday, March 8th in the Visitor Center, so from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. And I would just suggest, if anyone has any other ideas of where we should do this, dates, times, locations, please let me know, because we want to make it accessible to people. We want you to come, and we want to speak with you. Budget workshop. So we have a budget workshop coming up on Thursday, March 21st at 2 p.m. here in the Town Council chambers. And at that budget workshop, members of the town staff will come and tell us what they've done in the last year and what they're planning to do in the coming year. So that's important to know, so we can try to budget things and make sure we're doing things correctly and they have what they need to do what they want to do. And then finally, the general plan update. So the next step in the general plan process is for the planning and zoning to have a series of workshops. And they have 2 workshops. The first is Monday, March 11th, so that's next week, at 5:15 here in the Town Council chambers. And then a second on Monday, March 18th, starting at 5 o'clock here again. So please attend and share your thoughts and ideas. They're going to walk through the current draft of the general plan, and it's just an opportunity to let folks know what's going on and they can make adjustments. And finally, just one last comment about Kiwanis. So the Vice Mayor talked about that pancake breakfast. And Kiwanis has a tremendous impact on our community, Cave Creek, Carefree, and everywhere else. And they are the most generous organization we have. So last year, in 2023, they gave away in one form or another $1.2 million. So that's nearly $500,000 in scholarships, and then money to the Veterans Heritage Project, or the Food Bank, or the Cave Creek Museum, or various other things. So how do they get the money? Through the marketplace, through donations that we all make, right? We give them merchandise, and they sell it, and the merchant cost of sales for them, at least of the merchandise, is virtually zero. And they keep the money in the community. So they're great. So I'm not a member, so it's not, I don't have a conflict of interest, but I'm telling you, they are great and you ought to support them. Okay, so any other current events from anyone? Okay, item number 6. Item number 6. Presentation and discussion by Maricopa County Sheriff's Office District 4, Captain Dave Letourneau. And as the captain's coming up, just a little bit of background. So we are in District 4 of MCSO, Maricopa County Sheriff's Office. That office is located in Cave Creek. That's where the captain's office is and his posse members deploy from. And we contract with MCSO to provide our police service. And we've had a lot of things going on lately, and a lot of concerns, and things are moving. So, Captain, I'll turn it over to you. Thanks for coming today.
No problem. Thank you, Mayor, Council. Just to clear one thing up, that's where the deputies are dispatched from, not the posse. There's a big
did I say
difference.
posse? Oh, yeah.
There's a big difference.
Oh, yeah, sorry, I shouldn't have said that.
Would probably,
Thank you.
no harm, no foul. So just a couple points of interest, reference the sheriff's office, but also affecting Carefree. First of all, there's a new sheriff. I'm sure most of you know it, but Sheriff Penzone stepped down in the last year of this current term. And our number 2 in command, Chief Deputy Russ Skinner, was appointed by the Board of Supervisors as interim, but he is the sheriff for this whole next year, or at least continue out 24. But the election's in November. He'll be running. I'm sure there's going to be several candidates that also run for sheriff. The mayor and I met on February 23rd, Friday the 23rd. We had it's a national program called Coffee with a Cop. We did it here locally. We did it at the Black Mountain Coffee Shop. We met there at 8 o'clock that morning, and there was a good amount of people there. They had a lot of questions. I answered most of the ones I could, the best I could. It was a good turnout, and the mayor and I will plan to do that again in the future. It's a national program, like I said. The sheriff's office does it throughout the entire county, But I told the mayor we can host a few of them up here just for the town of Carefree also. Some of the town stuff that I like to bring up, I know how important the traffic concerns are up here in Carefree and in Cave Creek. One of the things that we'd like to announce, some may have seen it, they were up here for a week already. We have a motors unit now, so motorcycle unit that's enforcing traffic laws, helping out with traffic accidents. They are out and about. We started out with 5 bikes. Unfortunately, we had to get one of them get hurt, not in a wreck, but he tore his ACL doing something, playing basketball, I think. But you'll see those, they'll filter in up here. You'll see them on the main thoroughfares. I know that the first day they were here, I think they shocked some people. They wrote, if anybody doesn't know, driving and talking on your cell phone is illegal. And they wrote several tickets for that day. The first day out here, I think they hit 23 of them, people talking on their phones. So, it's a tragedy, but I'm very happy to announce the hit and run accident on Cave Creek earlier or late last year, early this year. We've arrested a suspect on that. He's in custody. Yes, it is. It's unfortunate how long it took, but sometimes when we don't have a lot to go on, the public calls in tips, and that's how this one was solved. I can't go into a lot of detail. It's still an ongoing investigation, but there is a suspect in custody, and he has admitted his responsibility in the accident. Also coming up, and I know this is a Cave Creek event, but it does affect Carefree a lot. Bike Week is coming, like it or not. It's upon us. It's this month. The town of Cave Creek has done a lot in the town around that district to help define parking a little bit better. One of the things they're going to do the week of the event, they're renting I'll call it a light device with an arm that comes down, and it will be at the crosswalks to help for the safety of people crossing in the sidewalks. It's not going to, or in the crosswalks. It's not going to help anybody that jaywalks in other areas, but things are better down there. If you notice, they've installed some sidewalks where they can, and they've defined clear walking paths. It's going to help. It's going to help. So that's all I have for today.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm surprised. I'm sure we have some questions from the council. If not, I certainly do.
Captain, thanks for the report. Noise ordinances, how are those going to be addressed during Bike Week?
Well, it's going to be very difficult because we talked the last time I was here about the devices to measure the decibel level. And for me to run it, I got to pull a guy off solely dedicated to holding that device out and measuring the decibel level. I don't have the manpower for that, to do that.
Will you also have folks stationed at the intersection of Pima and Cave Creek, where we get a lot of people that disregard the stop sign?
I won't have anybody stationed there, no. I will have my hands full with the people that I have. The Cave Creek Restaurant and Bar District are paying for 8 off-duty deputies per day on the big day events, but it'll be right down there. My patrol guys will handle it like we do every day on a daily basis.
Can we still get some empty cars stationed at some of those spots?
Empty cars?
Yeah,
No.
put one of your squad cars over and...
Singular, yes. I don't have empty cars. I have one that I can work with. And we've been placing that out there the last couple days. It was out yesterday and today, and it was out a couple days last week. So,
Okay.
But I don't have the manpower to station somebody at an intersection with the calls of service that are going to be coming in that day or during that week.
Okay.
I have a question. Pardon me,
Go right ahead.
John. Thank you for your report. I'm very glad we potentially caught the individual that committed this. You mentioned motorcycle officer. Is it one officer that would be available throughout?
We have 3 right now, 3 total.
And how long will they be? Is this only during the Bike Week event? Or throughout
No,
the
they're
year?
on a rotational basis. They're hitting all 5 of the districts. They hit them a week at a time, and it's rotating. They're currently at another district. We had them late in February. So it'll rotate through, and then we'll get them again for another week.
What's that rotation, every couple months, or?
I'm not sure what their schedule is, because they also, how about this? They'll be here for Bike Week. I scheduled them for that. That'll help. That's
Yeah.
not part of the 8 that I'm talking about. So they'll be helpful for that. I don't see their schedule. I just know we'll get them at a week at a time, and I get about a 3-week notice. I don't know when they're scheduled next up here.
Thank you.
Probably Bike Week.
Excellent.
We on occasion have, you have loaned us the traffic trailers to alert people of their speed, that you can move around. Is that something that you'll employ during Bike Week on, some of the outlying areas of Cave Creek, maybe Town
They are,
Darlington?
we have one up in the town of Cave Creek right now. I can look at borrowing one from another district, probably the Lake Patrol Division. We can try to set one up on your guys' end of town.
Yeah, I mean, somewhere between here and Pima
Sure.
would be helpful, and maybe on Tom Darlington, but I think you probably know where it's more
Absolutely.
appropriately placed.
I cut short because I anticipated questions, but I will tell you that since here at the last meeting, I know that traffic has been greatly enforced by my guys. And I know that as I have our downtown IT guys pull the data on the amount of traffic stops and that sort of thing. My issue why I don't display it today is also an IT problem. They can't separate my traffic units and my patrol units between Cave Creek and Carefree. What I can show is all the stops, but it includes Cave Creek also. But the numbers are way up. I know this also, I specifically asked my guys to pay attention just so that everyone's clear that all our speeders aren't just passing through town, that we have a lot of residents that are speeding through town also. And I know that, I'm not making light of that, sometimes there's a lot of people that think, oh, it's just people passing through, and it's not. So I want to stress that point. It's residents also.
So, excuse me, do you have any more information on the hit and run of the pedestrian that was on Tom Darlington?
There's no new information. The circumstances involving that, crossing the street in the dark, early morning, no lights really. I went down to that, not the scene, that would make it sound like I was there the day it happened, but I went and looked at that myself. And if you're at Stagecoach and Tom Darlington and you are looking to the south, Stagecoach, you're on top of a hill, and as you look back and look down, it goes down. So I'm guessing that what she thought, the car being further away, she couldn't really tell because they're down low, and as they rise over the hill, boom, it's on top of her. I was surprised when I saw it myself, and I went in the daytime. You can't see cars coming when they're down, hitting the uprise. We have even herself, no real evidence or anything to go on. The car is traveling northbound on Tom Darlington when it strikes her. All she could give us was a light-colored car northbound. That's it. That's all we have. So like the other hit and run, we're hoping, I know there's been 2 news stories that have been played with the media. We're hoping that will generate something. The first person out to help her, I spoke to him myself, he saw nothing either. So we don't really have a lot to go on that. There's no crosswalk there, it's dark. I gotta think with her injuries, the person that hit her knows they hit her. No idea where they came from. I know that there was a request by them, the victim and family, that we pull the camera footage from Carefree Highway and Tom Darlington, and that's Scottsdale's cameras, and we did contact Scottsdale, and their cameras, they're not functioning, they're fixing them, they're dealing with them, and there's no footage that day. And even if we had that footage, That footage would be before the accident occurred. So we'd be looking for a car with damage to it. The damage wouldn't have been on the car yet. So we don't have a lot to go on that one. She's recovering. She has extensive injuries, but she is going to live, but she's busted up pretty bad.
Exactly.
Thank you.
I do have a couple of other questions. For Bike Week, will the DUI truck be parked behind Town Hall?
No.
No.
It will be in the Cave Creek, our substation in Cave Creek.
Okay, but it'll be on the scene. It'll be-
Absolutely.
it'll
There will be.
Processing people.
Well, there will be a DUI task force out. We will have our vehicle, but there will be it's gonna be run out of Scottsdale. Scottsdale will also have a command post, a little further out of town. But we also have a DUI truck that will be over in the Cave Creek substation parking lot.
For those who are interested, I understand the Bike Week dates are March 29th through April 7th. So you've been alerted to that. Out of the office in Cave Creek, how many deputies work out of there?
17 deputies.
17.
Then I have 7 sergeants and 2 lieutenants.
Okay. And I know well, you've mentioned it, and I've heard it elsewhere, that MCSO is short on officers.
First off, everybody's short officers, everybody across the county, in the state. We're down, I just got this number yesterday, we're down 94 total deputies.
Out of, what should the,
Oh, we're in the 500s.
so it's like 20%.
And the headache is getting new recruits in. We're hiring like crazy. We have slots like crazy, but I wouldn't say nobody's applying, but the process is difficult, and in today's day and time, a lot of people are not wanting to be police officers.
So if you have 17 here now, if you were at 100%, how many would you have?
I would like to have 3 more guys per squad for a total of another 12 would be great. But I would do flips and cartwheels if I had 7.
So 24 would be a nice number. Okay, just trying to get a handle on it. So there's been a lot of talk about burglary, especially in Scottsdale, Peoria. And maybe you could you talked to it with Coffee with a Cop, but maybe you could just talk to it here a little bit so folks have an idea of just how
So-
safe we are and what's going on.
First off, I would say the community is very safe. You should feel safe. Burglaries are slightly up. In 2023, we had a total of 9, up from 3 in 2022. So it rose, but you also have to remember, if I was to go pull those 9 burglary reports, I will guarantee you that it will be some where garage doors are left open, cars are unlocked, doors are left open. And not to minimize, it's a burglary, but a burglary could be entering an unlocked vehicle and taking your purse out is a burglary technically. Now, I didn't pull those 9 reports, but as far as what I hear from public, Coffee with the Cop, this community is safe. It is safe. There is no crime-free cities or towns anywhere in this country. And so the burglaries that you've heard, the Chilean burglary group that are breaking through sliding glass doors, we have no indication that that's happened up here yet. Now, they're in the state, Scottsdale. They pounded, our District 1 covers a county island in Chandler. They hit that area hard. It's a very wealthy neighborhood. It would be comparable to Paradise Valley without Camelback Mountain, those type of homes. That is an area that did get hit with that group. There's been no indication that that we can say they've hit Scottsdale, they've hit PV. Now, we treat it like they have, or the task force treats it like they have, but we have no indication that they're up here yet. But all burglaries that are occurring, when they occur, go through the process of checking the profile and see if it fits that group.
Well, okay, thank you. Regarding the presence of MCSO on our roads monitoring speeders, personally, I've seen more vehicles out there than I can recall ever seeing. So thank you for that.
Sure, my instructions to my guys are if they're not on a call for service, regulate traffic. Even if they have to write a report, I have them parking on the main thoroughfares, writing their reports and being seen. So, and then the traffic car has been very busy. The Carefree traffic car has been writing a bunch of tickets and, more importantly, making a bunch of stops. They don't always write a ticket every time they make a stop.
No, well, we really appreciate that, so thank you. One resident asked me a question about the traffic patrol presence at night. So, of course, it's dark, you can't see them, but are they out there at night in our town?
Yes, the only difference between day shift and night shift is the traffic car is on day shift. I don't have a traffic car on night shift. That's the only difference. So one guy is the difference.
Okay, he's in a patrol car then. But he's in a vehicle of some kind,
Well, the traffic car works day shift.
okay?
Everything else, the regular beats and everything is filled the same as days and nights. I have one guy less during the night than I do during the day.
Okay, okay. Just going back to the arrest at Pima and Cave Creek Road, if you can tell us, so was the driver of that vehicle, was he impaired or was he just distracted? Do you know anything that you can share? Or maybe it's premature to
I
ask that
can't
question.
share that yet because that is part of the case and yeah.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
Any other questions from council?
As far as recruiting officers, do you find that they're being like picked off by Scottsdale or Phoenix that need police officers, or do you think the compensation is commensurate?
That's a great question.
To them?
I'm very happy to answer it. So I had a commanders meeting downtown yesterday with all the patrol commanders, the sheriff, the chiefs. And a question was specifically asked about recruitment. Where we get hurt, so we run our own training academy. We train our deputies, but we open that up to other agencies. And our pay is not the highest, and some of the other agencies, like a Scottsdale or no, Phoenix has their own academy. They don't come to ours. Chandler, sometime Mesa has their own. Youngtown, some of those agencies pay better than us. And what has happened quite a bit is they poach from us. We train their guys, we train our own guys, and then some of them leave us. But the other thing that's affecting us is because of the bulk of our guys, we're losing a lot of guys to retirement. It's just up to retirement. We have a recruitment division that is actively recruiting. Pay is an issue. It is, bottom line. But the other thing that hurts is the retirement package has changed from like what my retirement pension is compared to a guy that gets hired today is not even close to the same. We have tier 1, I'm a tier 1 employee, we have tier 2 and a tier 3, and tier 3 is drastically different. One thing that's different I don't think it's a big deal, but I fall into a tier 1. When I started, it was a 20-year retirement. You could retire at 20, you could stay longer. Now it's 25 years, that's changed. So there are some things that have changed. So it's difficult for all the agencies. Nobody's hitting their numbers. Almost like the military these days. Nobody's really hitting. Everyone can hire, but we can't fill them quick enough.
Yeah. Well, all of the public safety retirement systems, any new recruit in anywhere in the state of Arizona is on the tier 3.
Well, and put it in
Brand
perspective.
new.
Yeah. So if you don't know, the bulk of the sheriff's office is detention, running the jails. We're 700 guys short in detention, 751. And so we're a large sheriff's office because of detention. Detention's probably 3/4 of what we do. We do civil process and other things, but detention is where, and detention lost their pension. They don't even have a pension anymore. I don't know who wants to do that job without a pension, but, so now they are working on trying to get it back. We'll see how successful they are, but that's difficult for the office also. Now, there's a difference. Detention is detention officers. They're not deputies. LA County, everybody's a deputy. We're not that way. We have a separation. We have law enforcement, we have detention. But it still hurts us being that many short.
Anything else? So we have no public comment, but before I let you go, just for everyone knows, we've had a lot to talk about MCSO in the town lately, and I've been around for a little while, and working with Captain Letourneau has been great. You're really responsive, you reply to the texts, the phone calls. We've had, these hit and runs are front and center, and it's really important that we can at least have an idea of what's happening and we can answer questions that the citizens have. So we really appreciate that.
Thank you, Mayor.
Anyway,
I
thank
will
you.
say the mayor always answers my calls too, so it goes
Yeah, you're
both ways.
darn right, exactly. Okay,
I don't think the mayor speeds. but we'll
never.
see. We'll see.
Okay.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, council.
Thank you, Captain. So that was item number 6. And what we're going to do is we're going to take up item number 11. So we're going to take it out of order, because item number 11 is probably the reason many of you are here. So item number 11 is review, discussion, and possible action to approve Resolution 2024-05, authorizing the publication of the call of election and to do so as an all-mail ballot election. So I know we published that resolution, and just to clarify, the resolution does not take away the right to vote in person. What it does is it grants the right to vote by mail-in ballot. And so coming up on the general, this applies to both the primary election on July 30th and the general election November 5th. This building, this room, you'll be able to come in this room and vote in person. 12 days prior to the primary and 12 days prior to the general election. So please know that you'll be able to vote in person, not only here, but I think anywhere in the state, right? In the county. So having said that, I can understand why reading this resolution could cause some consternation. Because if you're an election official, okay, you can read it and you understand, right, what's going on, but I'm not an election official, and I may know a little bit more than some of you, but to the public, it's confusing. So I think one of the things that we should do is just modify this a little bit so it reflects that you can in fact vote in person, and we can take some other things out which may be concerning to folks that are not necessarily needed to be there. So having said that, yes. Yeah, those 12 days include the weekend?
I would think so, yeah.
We can check on that.
Okay. So has, Counselor, have you distributed any changes?
Yeah, I distributed, Mr. Mayor, I distributed a change to the resolution that just, one in the title section that just, I struck and do so as all, and just, so it says, and authorize a mail ballot election. I also added a recital toward the bottom of the first page that says, whereas citizens will be permitted to vote by mail or in person at designated poll sites. And the last change was two changes on with regards to the resolve section. We removed House Bill 2785 as affecting, simply because that has become law now and is already in the statute that's cited. And then we also put that as set forth, we deleted the election as, we just deleted that, so it says, as set forth, conduct mail ballot elections for the 2024 primary. And then I just added that it's Chapter 4, Article 8.1 is the reference provision now regarding that. So those are the changes I made to the resolution.
And I would also like the council to consider removing some of the whereases here, which I don't believe bring value to the, to what we're trying to do, and that is allow people to vote by mail and allow people to vote in person. So at the bottom, there's a whereas mail balloting yields higher voter participation. I suggest we strike that. Whereas the mail ballots delivered by the United States Postal Service remain secure and confidential, I suggest we strike that. The next item, whereas to protect against voter fraud, the Maricopa County Recorder's Office electronically scans and personally matches every voter signature affixed to each returned ballot envelope against the voter's signature on file from his or her voter registration form. We'll strike that. And I suggest we strike, whereas the database maintained by the Maricopa County Recorder's Office makes it impossible for a voter to vote more than one ballot.
Mayor, I'm just curious. I'm curious why you'd want to strike the two whereases on the top of page 2 to protect against voter fraud. I mean, I think that's important, because I think one of the things that we've heard is that with these mail-in ballots, you can get people voting more than once, that it's easy to trick the system. I would keep those two in, personally.
Well, I'm not disputing what's written here, and I actually personally, I believe what's written here is correct, but I don't think it brings necessarily any value to the resolution, and some of our residents may not agree with those statements, and I think what our mission here is to call the election with mail-in ballots and with in-person voting, and I think we can accomplish that without that language. And in the end of the day, as far as I'm concerned, those statements are true, and the county does a great job managing the election. I know folks may disagree with that. That's all fine. We can disagree. I understand, sir, but we all have different opinions. But
So you think they're redundant?
I don't think it's necessary in the resolution. I don't think it brings value to the resolution.
Actually, I don't think you can prove those,
Fair enough.
to be quite honest.
I
You
would
can't-
agree with you.
You can't prove that.
Correct.
So, I don't know why you would need to have that.
I agree with you.
I mean, it sounds great, but they can't prove that.
Exactly. So we're basically, by including those statements in there, we're taking a position in our resolution, and we don't need to do that. In fact, it could be argued we shouldn't. It's out of place. We'll have public comment. So any other questions or comments?
I would say that I do see quite a few people, as I'm at the post office a lot, walking in with ballots, who obviously prefer to receive a ballot in the mail. And I feel that they have a right to do that, if that's what they prefer. And they also everyone has a right to vote whatever style they want. So I would not want to take away people's ability to choose how they receive a ballot.
And in fact, most folks, at least in the last election at the county level, voted by mail-in ballot. Our last special election was entirely by mail-in ballot, and we had a record turnout for that election.
It seems like the main thing we're voting on is the third from the bottom, whereas, I mean, these lines should be numbered, by the way, but, I mean, that's the main reason we're voting.
You gotta turn your microphone on.
The third paragraph, whereas citizens will be permitted to vote by mail or in person at designated polls. Council, that was not in there or not stated clearly for everyone. Was that the issue at hand?
Yes, Councilmember Hatcher, Mr. Mayor, that was not in it, so we just wanted to clarify that point.
And
so
that's
they-
really the core of this discussion.
I think it helps clarify
Yeah, whereas the other items, as mentioned, are just nice to hear and read about, but not necessarily pertinent to what we're trying to do here. Those are moot points.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
Any other comments from the council?
Well, I agree that anything that yields as an opinion on this, on these 2 pages should be stricken. And you know, most of the whereas can be seen as that. So there's quite a bit that can be stricken off of these, as you had indicated. It's just not necessary. So just stick to the facts and let's move on.
Okay. If there's no other comments, we'll open up to public comment. We have a few. So first up, let's lay the ground rules. 3 minutes when you come up to the podium. Speak into the microphone so everyone can hear you. And just come up and state your address and your name. So Colleen Rose Skirty, please come up.
Is this on? Okay. I'm Colleen Rose Skirty and a resident of Carefree. Now, I'm on the fly here having to adjust my comments based on things you just said. I'm glad to see that you are making changes, and I would hope that you would not have any vote on this resolution until it's actually out in front of people to see it, since you are making these changes. That being said, I'm just going to go through and say what I wanted to say. When I read the resolution, I have to say, I did not read what you're saying, what was in it. I didn't read those words, and I did reach out to the mayor and the council with several questions about the resolution. I did hear back from the mayor, who stated that Carefree has always been an all-mail ballot municipality since 2011. Now, he said that an all-mail ballot election does not take away the right to vote in person. He said the voters can go to any Maricopa County polling location. He also stated that as recently as the 2023 special property tax election, every voter had the right to receive a ballot via the mail. But we were not able to vote in person for that special election. We could only vote by mail. There was nothing different in this. The mayor then said to reach out to Candace French, as she's the town clerk and election official, and she could answer my other questions. I did send an email to Candace and copied the mayor with my list of questions. I then received an email back from the mayor saying Candace was out of the office, so could not answer my questions, and that he did not have the expertise to answer them, but that the town attorney would be answering them tonight, which I look forward to. My questions are, if this process has been in place since 2011, why are you doing a new resolution every election? If we have election standards and processes in place, why do we need to keep doing resolutions? 2, was the process used for the special election last year done at the town clerk's request or Maricopa County's request? 3, who authored this new resolution? Candace, the town attorney, or someone else? 4, did we receive permission from Maricopa County as required, I believe, or was it suggested by Maricopa County? 5, which you've already addressed, I wanted to know where it said we could vote in person. In summary, in my opinion, I want safe and secure elections. Our country needs them desperately. I believe the only way to do that is with paper ballots, no machines, one-day voting in your precinct and counted in the precinct, like how it used to be. I know we're far away from that. But if we cannot even get safe and secure elections in our own small town, what hope do we have for getting them for our country? Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I can answer a couple. I obviously haven't been here since 2011, but generally this is just simply a call for election resolution. It's pretty pro forma for towns to approve all of it. I mean, some towns don't do them that much anymore, but it's a lot of them do, because it gives you the date and when the primary election will be for the town in the general election. So it's really trying, some towns put more information in to talk about, nomination petitions, things like that. Others have taken a lot out of these now and just put in the days for the election, but the election's gonna happen with this resolution or without this resolution. So it's just
Okay.
going forward.
Okay, very good. Okay, Mr. Stuart Skirty.
Mayor, council, my comments have also somewhat changed based on the new information that you've provided. But I wanted to introduce myself. Stuart Skirty, I'm a Carefree resident. I'm also the Republican Party PC, meaning Precinct Committeeman, Captain for Carefree for the Republican Party. I'm also the chairman of the Election Integrity Committee in LV3, which is Legislative District 3. I meet regularly with our legislature, both in the House and the Senate, on election integrity issues. I consider myself fairly well informed on this stuff. So my comments, and I'm glad you picked them out because a lot of these comments were incorrect and not accurate. They might be opinion, and that's fine, but they do not belong in something like this. But just to correct the record, mail-in balloting yields higher voting participation. That might be true. It's not the volume of ballots received that's important. Rather, it's the validity of the ballots cast that is of importance. Mail-in ballot fraud is the reason the vast majority of countries in the world do not allow no-excuse mail-in voting, as we now have in Arizona. The second item that I had issue with, that mail-in ballots delivered by the United States Postal Service remain secure and confidential. I'm sorry, but the USPS is not secure when it comes to our elections. The post office is run by the federal government, the same federal government that's opened our borders to millions and millions of illegal invaders over the past 36 months, while telling us the border is 100% secure. The USPS is responsible for mailing out 74% of all ballots in Maricopa County and receives a large majority of those back in the mail to process. Yet, there are 0 party election observers allowed in their facilities to assure chain of custody of those ballots. Unlike MTEC, and now, thank goodness, we'll have them at Runback, but 0 at post office, and they handle 74% of our election ballots. Also, the public's not aware of any data, it's not allowed any data on the non-deliverable ballots from the post office, ones that couldn't be delivered. How many were undeliverable? How many were returned? Where are these ballots when they're returned? Where do they go? None of this is available to the public. Did you know that there's a black market for blank ballots? The going rate's about $50 a ballot. So that induces fraud, right? It incents fraud. The other item was to protect against voter fraud. Maricopa County electronically scans and personally matches every voter's signature affixed to the envelope. This is provably false using the county's own video camera footage. It's estimated in 2022 election, 250 to 300,000 signatures were validated by Maricopa County employees in less than 2 seconds each. Now, validating a signature is a 27-point process. It's not humanly possible to do in 2 seconds, and yet 300,000 votes were done that way. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Mr. John Mattis.
As everybody else, I have to redo my little speech. The thing I had a problem with was the ARS 16409A, which conduct elections, any elections in mail-in ballots. That section, as a lot of other sections, is for special district elections. And then it refers you to 16558, which is special district elections, mail-in ballot elections. It has nothing to do with the primary, it has nothing to do with the general. And that refers you to 225. That is specifically about special district election dates. We aren't a special district unless the attorney knows something different than I do. Then it refers to 1604, or 204. It's confusing to say the least. To dovetail across what was just said by Stuart, in April 7th of 2022, then AG Branovich released a report on findings of fraud with problems in handling over 100,000 mail-in ballots in Maricopa County. To say this is safe and secure is ridiculous. Mail-in ballots are not safe and secure. So why are we pushing it? I wasn't even aware that we're gonna have an election point here. It was in the last general election, but I got a notice from the recorder that my place for personal on voting day election is Cave Creek Town Hall. Are we having a point here? Are we having a election here?
For
Where we
the,
can come and vote on election day in the town council chambers like we did back in 2020 and 2022?
for the primary and the general, we will. We have a
Not-
contract.
Yeah, that's what I'm
We-
saying, not according to what the Maricopa County sent me. I've got a notice in the mail saying if we're gonna vote in person, it's Cave Creek Town Hall.
No, it's, we have a contract with them. We signed it a month or several months ago.
I
And
wanna
it will
let
be
them
here.
know.
Okay, well, thank you.
You're welcome. And I believe I sent you that article on AG.
Yes, yes, I did. I read it.
Okay, it'd be nice to maybe spread the word around to the rest of the council. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Miss Melissa Price. Oh, what's wrong?
There's something on this side of the room that is like totally humming. I don't know if you guys hear, we can all hear, so when whoever's talking, there's this at the same.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, we'll try to fix it at least in time for the next one. Go ahead.
Melissa Price, Carefree. You may not remember this, but Abraham Lincoln said, elections belong to the people, and every citizen's vote is sacred. You've answered a lot of my questions here tonight, and I'm glad you're taking the actions that you are. But I am concerned that we've all gotten notices that we're supposed to go to Cape Creek to vote. And if there's some way that you can get them to send out Maricopa County another notice.
Man, it could be the presidential primary, because that's the next election. It could be, I don't know for sure, but there's a March election, which is the presidential primary. That could be where they're sending you for that, because we don't, that's not a city,
But why aren't we voting in our own precincts?
it's not a city election.
Okay, well, I can remember when I first came to Carefree, we voted in the town council chambers for any election. And I really strongly recommend we get back to that.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, we'll investigate the March 5th, was it March 12th election? 19th, okay, we'll investigate that and see the details about how it's being run and why it's not here and why it's over there. So I have no other public comments for this topic, so we'll close public comment. You,
That's okay. Actually, it's very cool.
so you were called to the public?
I know I marked the wrong one. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'll just be very quick. Just very quick. Ariane Buser, hi, Carefree resident. So I too, I echo a lot of what people had said tonight, and I too was very concerned by the resolution when I first saw it. I just thought it was kind of funny, like who authored it, first of all. So thank you, Colleen, for asking that question, and also why now? Like, it just seemed like it was odd timing. I mean, yes, we know this is a huge election year, 2024 presidential, but 2022 was also a very, very important election year. So I just found it very curious as to why this resolution came out for this year. And I actually brought my notice. So that said that my closest voting center was in Cave Creek, but maybe that was because it's a PPE and the more general and primary ones will be done here in Carefree. So I just also have some questions about that because I just thought it was very odd timing. But anyway, hopefully it sounds like we've got some stuff to get sorted out, but please do not approve this resolution tonight. Thank you so much for taking our concerns and hearing what we have to say into consideration. So we would love to see an updated resolution and kind of see what happens after that. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. So for those who have a mail-in ballot, you're also welcome to come to Town Hall. We have a box, you can drop it off. So there's continuous custody with that box. So they come and pick it up every day, I believe, meaning the county comes and picks it up every day. So that's another option if you're so inclined.
Just to clarify, though, this resolution has been going on every election year since 2011. So we didn't just introduce it this year. It's been in 22, 20, 18, 16, 14, 12.
Okay.
It's not new,
So it's,
just clarification.
sorry, go right ahead.
No.
So what I'd like to do now is go through the resolution and make sure we identify everything which we're going to modify.
Well, can I just ask, Dennis, you said that many towns don't even do this. Maybe we need to discuss whether or not it's something we even need to do. I didn't know if we had to have a call to election.
I mean, I think it's been done. I mean, it's been done for a long time by cities, so I think it gives everybody on notice when the city election's gonna be done too, and that's why I think cities like to do their own, don't have to, but I think they like to do their own, because in the city record, then there's specific dates for that election will take place at the same time.
Okay.
Dennis, what's the mandate? Do we have to do this? And if we don't, then what? We can't vote?
No, I think the election's gonna happen, one way or another. I mean, I think I think with the 4 recitals that have been discussed to be deleted, those seem to me, from listening to comments, the only ones that I think caused heartburn, with regards to the resolution. I mean, it talks about, you know, what statutes it's run out, when the dates of the primary election, when the general election's gonna be held, and, so, I mean, I think it's, puts everybody on notice, so I think it's a good thing. I don't think you have to, do it automatically, but I think it's a good resolution to have, because it sets forth your city, you know, when the city election will be too.
Because we have council elections on July 30th, and then at a minimum, we'll have the November 5th, general plan will be on the ballot,
And
at
I
a
think,
minimum.
Mr. Mayor, another good point just is because the statute typically is the first Tuesday in August and it had to be brought back, a lot of towns have come back to do them too, to make sure everybody's put on notice that it's gonna be July 30th, because of the statute or the recent change in the law.
So I'd like to, if there's no other comments, I'd like to walk through the resolution and identify what will be changed or struck. Well, we've closed public comment, but please, okay, I'll make an exception to the rule. Please come up, identify your name and where you live.
I'm Marcia Haber, and I live in Granite Mountain,
Granite Mountain.
or Desert Mountain.
Oh, okay.
I'm an election day voter, and I've only been here for a year, and this is where I voted last year. And now I get this notice saying that I'm going to Rio Verde, and it's 36 minutes from my house. Now, I think they're trying to tell me that that it's a long way, and you don't really have to vote. I think that they're, you know, doing sneaky things, and I don't appreciate it, and I want to vote here. I mean, it's 15 or 20 minutes from my house and 38 minutes.
Yeah.
So, and I don't understand why that's not happening.
So elections are run by the county? We don't run them? And I don't have an answer for you.
Okay.
But you can vote, if you're a resident of Maricopa County, you can vote at any precinct in Maricopa County.
I know.
So
But
that
that's
makes
bad too.
absolutely
you know,
no
that's
sense.
That's not a good thing either. But anyway, that's beside the point. It's just 38 minutes. This is where they
Yeah,
directed me.
That is
And
absurd.
so, and the thing is, you don't even know if we can have it here. So
Oh, I know,
the PPE election on.
it's not here, I can guarantee you. It's not in this building.
Right, but is it, so
It's
it's
in
going to be.
Cave Creek for sure, sounds like.
So that's probably 30 minutes from my house. So it's still, it's 30 minutes, for goodness
Okay.
sakes, to go vote. You don't have, it shouldn't be like that. There's churches, there's all kinds of places to have elections.
Cave Creek Town Hall is 3 minutes away, if even that.
Oh,
It's
is
a
it?
mile.
Okay,
mile
well, I
and a
don't know
half.
where it is, so
Yeah,
I've
it's
never
right
been to
down the
that
street.
one.
Okay, well, thank you for,
Okay, thank
for
you.
bringing it up. Okay, so now we call to the public comment. So let's just review some of the changes that are proposed for the resolution, or review all the changes. In the title, we will strike "do so as an all" and insert "authorize a." And so the way it'll read is a resolution of the Common Council of the Town of Carefree, Maricopa County, Arizona, to authorize the town clerk to conduct the July 30th, 2024 primary election and November 5th, 2024 general election, and authorize a mail ballot election pursuant to ARS 16-409A. Then we will add a whereas, a recital, which reads, whereas citizens will be permitted to vote by mail or in person at designated poll sites. And then we're going to strike the following recitals. Whereas mail balloting yields higher voter participation. And whereas that mail ballots delivered by the United States Postal Service remain secure and confidential. And whereas to protect against voter fraud, the Maricopa County scan affixed to each returned ballot envelope against the voter's signature on file from his or her voter registration form. And whereas the database maintained by the Maricopa County Recorder's Office makes it impossible for a voter to vote more than one ballot. So those recitals will be struck. We will have added a recital which states citizens will be permitted to vote by mail or in person at designated poll sites. And then, as our attorney pointed out, in the closing paragraph, there's some changes to references to statutes, so we get it correct. The town clerk is authorized to conduct a primary election and general election pursuant to ARS 16-204E1 and 2. Cause the publication of the call of election and notice of the primary election and general election as set forth. Conduct mail ballot elections for the 2024 primary and general elections in accordance with Arizona Revised Statute Title 16, Chapter 4, Article 8.1, and canvass the election as set forth above. So what we've done is the main things, my takeaway is we state that, as there has been, but so it's black and white, that there is in-person voting, and by the way, that it'll be here 12 days before the general and 12 days before the primary, and we struck 4 recitals which really bring, or like Councilwoman Amorosa pointed out, or more of an opinion, can't be proven, they shouldn't be in here anyway. So, having said that, any other questions or comments from the council? Do you understand what we've struck and inserted?
Mayor Crane, this is Mike Johnson.
Okay. I'll give you a shot. Go ahead, Johnson.
I share the concerns of the citizens that spoke and the ones on the council. A greater observation is with the introduction of mail-in voting, we all know it's controversial, chain of custody issues, et cetera. My observation is this is a bigger issue that belongs in the state legislature and Congress, and in fact, there are a lot of people that would like to see a return to the precinct system and validated absentee voting, but that's really beyond the scope of this council.
Okay, well, thank you. Mr. Skirty, you had a comment? Okay, could you say again, so, Okay, yeah, we'll accommodate that.
What Stuart was saying is that they're not called poll centers anymore, they're called vote centers. Did I say that correctly? Vote site, vote centers.
Okay, we'll make that change, and we want to get it right. What's this sound coming from?
That's Mike. Yeah, Mike.
Oh,
Mr. Mead.
yeah, please, yeah, mute him. Okay, thanks for those comments. Okay, it's clear? Okay, is it clear to everyone up here on the council? Okay. Are there any other comments from council?
No.
So I would entertain a motion to approve the resolution with the noted changes. Is there a second?
Once I turn my microphone on, I will make that motion.
We'll second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Okay, so we have, I believe, 6 ayes and 1 nay. And the resolution passes. So thank you for allowing us to discuss that and your participation in that discussion. So now we'll get back on track on the agenda in the prescribed order. Item number 7, appoint to the Sky Ranch Community Relations Committee pursuant to Town of Carefree, Arizona Ordinance number 99-03, Section 2-11. Okay. So the town has what we call a community relations committee, Sky Ranch Community Relations Committee. There's a special use permit which establishes that. It was probably done, it's signed maybe 20 years ago. And it calls for the existence of this committee and the town to appoint 2 representatives to that committee. And the purpose of that committee is to make sure that the airport is a good neighbor, right? So if there's noise complaints, some misbehavior, it's an opportunity for the town to work it out with the airport. So my experience is the airport has been a good neighbor. They are very sensitive to noise. They don't want to have discussions about anything that might curtail their operations or even their existence. So we have the opportunity to appoint 2 people to that committee. In the last, since I've been mayor, we instituted through a vote staggered term limits, so we rotate our councilmen. We're more likely to rotate our councilmen as opposed to never having a term limit, right? People could live forever or serve forever. We did the same thing for planning and zoning, right? We reappointed everyone to planning and zoning. In other words, everyone who was on there had to reapply. We had a lot of people step forward, and we appointed 7 new or some incumbents to the Planning and Zoning Commission. And then, after we did that, the vice mayor suggested we should have some staggered terms for that as well. And we passed an ordinance to make that happen. So 2 years ago in March, almost 2 years to the day, we appointed 3 representatives to the Sky Ranch Community Relations Committee. And to me, it's only appropriate that we, using that same philosophy, run our representation on that committee the same way. We don't have to pass ordinances for term limits and so forth. We can take it upon ourselves to do that. One thing that's been brought to my attention is, and if you read the SUP, the special use permit carefully, there really ought to be only 2 representatives from the town on that committee, so we're going to appoint 2. So before we move on, first I'd like to thank those who have served. Currently in the incumbents, Tom Sanders. Last month he moved to Colorado, so he didn't reapply. Duke Vakata, he served for 2 years, he did not reapply. And Dr. Steve Mehta, who is reapplying, or is applying. So anyway, thanks to all of them. They did a great job. They represented all of our interests well during the last 2 years. So tonight, what we're going to do is make 2 appointments. And we have 7 strong candidates. And we've done these appointments before, and I've never seen or had any experience of 7 people stepping up for this. Usually, it's like the minimum. So what does that tell us? Well, people are engaged and they want to participate, and that's just great. That's what we like to see. So what we'll do tonight is the council will appoint two representatives. Each representative that's here, or each candidate, each applicant who is here tonight will have an opportunity to speak for 2 minutes, introduce themselves to the council and to the public, and then we'll vote. So I have the names here. So I'll invite Josh Netter up. Now, Josh sent me a text today. He's on an airplane and couldn't be here. But, okay.
But he's on an airplane, so.
That's right, his heart's in the right place. Steve Mehta.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. I'm Steve Mehta. For those I've not met previously, I'm a resident of Carefree. I'm also a pilot, not current, but a pilot in the previous years. I've been living in Carefree for about 20 years. Most recently, we moved back actually about 5 years ago. I've been serving on the committee for the past 2 years and have enjoyed it, and hope that my participation has been of value to the airport and to the community. I understand with the turnover and wanting perhaps opportunities for others to participate, and I fully support that. And I offer myself up as just my continued interest in serving that capacity. But certainly I understand that there are others, and I certainly welcome other participants in that. I think that the airport is a very valuable asset to our community. Having said that, I think that it's important to be good stewards of the airport as well, to make sure that they continue to be good neighbors for those of us members of the community that don't fly and perhaps appreciate the sounds of airplanes overhead, like I and other pilots do. So I thank you for your consideration, and happy to answer any questions that any may have.
Okay, well, thank you. Oh, do you have a question, Councilman Hatcher?
Yes, Steve, I was just curious, what aspect of the committee did you enjoy the most?
It actually was, I would have to say, the public comments that when we got in with trying to help the community understand how airports operate and why aircraft have to fly over particular areas, particular paths, and we can't deviate over and go over somebody else's house instead of yours. You know, those types of things. And then to the development of the property around the airport. That was of interest to me as well, the open space just to the south of the airport.
Right.
Very interested in that development.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next up, Ted Taylor.
Good evening, Council. My name is Ted Taylor. I do have a personal interest in getting involved with the airport. My house on Long Rifle, where I've lived for the past 4.5 years, is in the direct flight path of takeoff and landings for the airport. And fortunately, all the people doing that are very well mannered. They haven't water ballooned my house or anything as such. So I'm very happy with that. In regards to flying, I hold a commercial pilot license. I have a multi-engine rating. I have a instrument rating. I am also type rated in a Citation jet. The Citation jet being over 12,500 pounds. So at this point, you could theoretically, if I knew what the heck I was doing, I could say that I could fly anything that is able to fly into and out of the airport. So I do have a sense of what is, about the flying aspect of things and everything else. I also majored in aeronautical engineering in college, so I have an engineering background in that regard. So that was sort of fun. But it would be an honor to serve, and thank you for the consideration.
Great, well, thank you. Next up, Stephen Tracy.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, Town Council. My name's Steve. I'm a real estate broker. I'm local to here. I have my office right over there in Elbow Bend. 3 kids that went through the whole school process in this area, and we love it. This is my hometown, and this is the first time I've seen something that looked like an opportunity where I could serve the public a little bit. As a background, I spent over 20 years as a cruise line defense attorney and did aviation law as well and real estate law as a practitioner. Some of my clients have been Cunard and Princess Cruise Lines, things like that. And the state of South Carolina was my client for a period of time. Basically, I understand the rules pretty well. I've testified as an expert in real estate valuations for various courts in Arizona. Additionally, I am also a licensed pilot. So, love the opportunity to serve.
Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Ken Meters.
Mayor, Council. Yeah, my name's Ken Metters, and I've been a resident since '99, and I've been in Arizona since '85. I'm currently a retired airline pilot. I started out my career a typical flight instructor into charter, corporate aviation. I don't know if anybody's familiar with Peabody Coal, who is now Peabody Energy, but they have the coal mine up on Black Mesa on the Navajo Reservation. And then I went into the airlines. I also have a master's degree in aeronautical science, system safety, and human factors, and I was co-chair of the Pilot Safety Committee for 6 years. And I live over on Serene, so I literally watch the airplanes take off and land. And through my years flying for the airline, I could never get involved with anything because I'm always out flying a trip somewhere. And now, when this opportunity came about with my aviation background, I think that, I could, help out the town. And I am always concerned about people who they just don't understand aviation. And somebody mentioned flight paths and all that sort of thing. And I think I'd be able to explain that in layman's terms to people. So I know that you're going to select somebody today, but my wife managed to break her kneecap the other day, and she's sitting at home in a leg brace right now. So I kind of have to leave, and whatever happens, if you could just let me know.
Oh, Ron, thanks for coming, and go home and take care of her. Ken Meter. Ken. Hey, Mr. John Trainer.
Good evening, Mayor Crane, members of the council, residents at home and in the room. My name is John Trainer, and on this date next month, my wife and I will be 24-year residents. I'm not a pilot, though I have spent many hundreds of hours flying in both large and small aircraft. My professional background is not in aviation or aerospace. I spent almost 4 decades in the financial services industry in a specialty role commonly known as information technology. Our move to Arizona was prompted by a new career opportunity with the Scottsdale Insurance Company, where I was hired as Senior Vice President, Chief Information Officer. In my prior New York City financial center life, I was head of a technical services organization where my department budget was comparable to Cave Creek's budget. Aside from the knowledge and experience I've gained over the course of my career, I also possess what I believe are 2 additional and significant assets: common sense in a complex world, and a finely honed truth detector, which my wife refers to using different terminology. So why did I volunteer for a position on the Airport Advisory Committee? Well, because I wanted to serve the residents of Carefree in some capacity, and this opportunity is literally very close to home for me. I am a neighbor who lives 1/4 mile from the east end of the runway, and I'm happy to say that I have never had cause to file a complaint regarding airport operations. I am prepared to serve in the best interests of residents, the town of Carefree, as well as the airport community, to fulfill the requirements of the ordinance that granted the airport a special use permit. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Okay, well, thank you. Richard Donaldson.
Good evening, council and mayor and residents and everybody else. My name is Richard Donaldson, and I am probably the more new resident of Carefree, only being 3 years. Moved here in 2021, but I've got roots here. My mother's been here about 25 years prior to, and then my grandmother actually grew up in the area. So I feel like I've got quite a bit of history here. Excuse me, also a flight instructor currently. So prior to moving to Carefree, I actually spent 25 years in San Francisco in the Silicon Valley. I was a technology executive and have now made the switch into the aviation world upon moving to Arizona. So now I'm building a flight school out of Mesa, and I've actually had a couple students out of the Carefree Airport as well too. So some familiarity with Carefree as an airport, both as an operator, as an instructor, and then I live probably just about a quarter mile from the end of the east end of the runway. Wasn't really intending on having 7 great candidates showing up tonight, and I'm sure you weren't either. And listening to everyone's credentials, I'm super impressed. So I think you're going to have a pretty tough selection process here, but I'm throwing my hat in the ring, and we'll give sort of a fresh perspective on where things are going. Thank you.
Great, well, thank you. So Mr. Donaldson was our 7th and final candidate. So before I open it up to public comment, we have one public comment. Any questions or anything from the council? Okay, hearing none. We have one public comment from Ms. Wendy Mattis. Okay, okay. All right, so it's back in our court. So we'll begin the election or the selection process. I don't believe there's any other questions from council to our candidates. So each of us will have a chance to vote, or select a candidate. We'll pick 2, and we'll do it verbally so everyone knows how we're thinking. So if you're ready for that, and if you're ready.
I'm ready.
So Mr. Clint Miller?
This is very difficult. These are all very well qualified people. But I was quite impressed with Ted Taylor. I looked at his resume pretty carefully, his work with HUD, his ownership of apartment buildings, managed a large medical office, involved in commercial real estate, special forces leader, and a commercial pilot. So I think highly of that individual. I was also impressed with Ken Meadows, the idea that he's a flight instructor, has quite a bit of an experience. So those would be my first 2 choices.
Okay. Councilwoman Amorosa?
Thank you. I have to agree with Clint that it was a difficult decision because pretty much everybody was well qualified, and had a lot of experience. But my criteria was a Carefree resident as well as someone with pilot or aviation experience. But that still narrowed it down to a very large group of more than 2. So I'm actually with Clint and Ted Taylor and Ken Meters.
Very good. Councilman DeLisio?
So obviously a very difficult decision, but in my opinion, and in seeing this in my time on council, is that Ted Taylor has repeatedly stepped forward to serve in various capacities here, and he's actually very qualified for this position with his background and standing in the community and willing to serve any chance that he can. So my vote goes to Ted Taylor and the incumbent, Dr. Stephen Mehta, in serving. Thank you for stepping forward again.
Very good. Councilman Hatcher?
In looking things over, my vote was for Mr. Taylor as well, and Steve Meta.
Okay, thank you. And Vice Mayor?
Yeah, you know, I don't really know much about this, but I think that everyone who's thrown their hat in the ring has a lot more experience than I do, certainly, and has shown an understanding of what the job is and what we're looking for. And so I would throw my hat or my votes in with Clint and Sheila for Ted Taylor and Ken Metters.
Very good. Okay. So to me, what's important is that, sorry? Oh, Michael Johnson. Oh, yes. Thank you. Out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah, I'm here. My vote is for Steve Meta and Ted Taylor.
Okay, very good. Okay. So what I look for, some aeronautical knowledge. So if you go to those meetings, they're talking airport, they're talking aeronautical things, so it's good to be able to understand what you're saying. The person should be a resident of our town. I think that's, to me, that's important to mind our interests, and not that those who don't live in our town wouldn't, but a little bit closer to home, maybe slightly more accountable. So having said that, my vote is with Steve Meta and Ted Taylor. And also say, while she's tabulating things, very outstanding group of candidates. Really, yes, yeah, give them a hand. Very good, very good.
Just one comment.
Sure.
I too was an aerospace engineer, and anytime you want to talk about airplanes, let me know.
Okay.
Mayor and council, I have 7 votes for Ted Taylor, and I've got 4 votes for Ken Metters, and 3 votes for Stephen Meta.
Okay, so that means so to be selected, you have to have
Wait. Mayor, who'd you vote for?
Taylor and Meta.
I got 4 from, I thought I had Councilmember D'Alicio, Councilmember Hatcher, wait for Meta, and then Councilmember Johnson for Meta, the mayor.
So that's 4.
So 4 votes for Meta.
Councilman Hatcher, did you vote for Ken Metters or Steve Meta?
He voted for Meta. Okay.
So what's the tally?
We have 4 for Steve Meta, 7 for Ted Taylor, and 3 for Ken Metters.
Okay, so there's no doubt, correct? Okay, so congratulations to Steve Meta and to Ted Taylor, and thank you all for participating. And the fact that you stepped forward, I personally appreciate your interest, and there's always things that are going on in town, and we can put you to work on something else. So don't be shy. We won't be shy in reaching out to you. So thank you.
And also just to know that these meetings are publicly announced. So though you did not make it, feel free to come and join and learn more about it.
That's right. They're posted on the website. They're public meetings. They're in the Firehouse Conference Room, usually once a quarter, 11 a.m. Okay. Well, thank you very much for that. Item number 8. Presentation and update on the comprehensive signage plan.
That will be me.
Steve Popopek will lead this discussion, or?
I will
Oh,
start
okay.
the discussion.
Go right ahead.
And Steve will join in. Yes,
Thank
thank you. Thank you very much. Again, just to be clear, this is an update on the comprehensive sign and circulation plan. Staff is just bringing forward the information that we were part of in terms of the new stakeholder group that goes back to when council sort of asked us to look at the plan again. With that said, I'll try to briefly go through the presentation since there's a couple of us speaking. But as you know, the process actually originally started as a planning effort. Together with economic development, we sort of joined forces as we found that the signage plan was sort of came out of our village center master plan, but economic development had sort of noted circulation issues as well as parking, and so those things together would probably solve. We didn't want to do a wayfinding plan that might have changed based on some circulation issues that we may be solving. So, so we moved this process forward to planning and zoning. They did recommend approval to town council of the plan. They weren't presented the costs, and in fact, that was somewhat intentional so that they could unbiasedly evaluate the plan and make that recommendation to you. As town council, you know, your position is to sort of make the decisions in terms of the finances aspect of it. But at that, it went to town council, and as you know, the audience raised concerns about costs when it was first introduced. And so the process was tabled, and council asked staff to create sort of a new dialogue with some, maybe some fresh insights. And so we opened up the stakeholder group again and began that process in November, where we put together that new group. The stakeholder group for this sort of for taking this sort of new discussion forward is 18 total. We did reach out first to the original stakeholders who were part of the initial process, and 8 of them were interested in being a part of the discussion again. So we had 8 original as well as 10 new interested parties who became part of, again, this new stakeholder group. We felt that it was a very well-balanced group. I believe that the group itself would agree. I think what was really kind of neat for us is I felt that there was definitely open minds and very respectful dialogue in this process. So through this new stakeholder input, we had a kickoff meeting. This was without the consultant back in December of last year. And what was really kind of nice about that meeting is that everybody took the time to sort of get to know who everybody was, what they represented, as well as their perceptions and ideas of signage. At the second meeting where the consultant was involved, and they did plan a tour, which was a tour of town center, and to sort of understand the proposed signage and where it actually would be placed in the center. I think it was very eye-opening for a lot of the members of the group. For example, one, understanding parking and what was town-owned parking versus what was private parking. But I would say then the follow-up, so we kind of then had a conversation about signage, followed up in February, where what staff heard was there was some initial consensus to the plan. And what we will be then following up with is from that, there's still some details to be worked out, but from that, we're going to have a late March meeting where then we're going to take that discussion and roll it into the circulation and parking aspect of the plan, and that's something Steve will talk about in a moment. I think the most important thing that came out of this was people were concerned about costs. The group looked at a sign reduction. They basically, for the total sign project, the group was able to cut that budget almost in half. You also heard, I think, at that meeting that it was a number of signs was an issue, and I think that's what contributed to the reduction in cost, is that they went from 63 signs down to 45. And then we looked at an implementation budget, which originally was over $500,000, and that was reduced to around $350,000, maybe up to $400,000 for initial implementation. This probably had to do with reducing the number of signs as well. But what I would say from that, we're missing some of the graphic here, but that's all right. I would say that the main concepts that came out of these discussions, or kind of major details, were that people liked, or the group liked the design of the signs. I believe that they were very happy with the quality, the style, the materials that were proposed. There are questions, and the consultant, that's why I'm saying this is an update. We're not bringing anything forward to you at the moment. We do need to finalize some of these details. For example, there was a concern about some color, about materials, being sure that the lifetime and the maintenance to these signs would be as minimal as possible. The other thing that came out of this discussion was simplifying our gateway signs. Basically, and I'll have a slide for you next about what that means, about the design of the sign has sort of been simplified, but it will allow still for some flexibility if you all still like the main design. And as well as we looked at the kiosk sign we felt was important, the group felt was important, but the cost being digital was very high, and there were concerns of maintenance. And so the idea was to, as you see here, I'll kind of work backwards. The kiosk sign, the designs will stay the same, but that electronic panel where you see information would then be a static board. And we'll try to figure out ways to how that would be maintained and how we would still kind of circulate information on a regular basis in that location. We talked about things like QR codes, for example. The gateway sign then on the far left, as you can see, that's the original design. Instead of having the panel with the flags on it, the idea was to take that panel off and just have like the minor gateway sign as shown. The thing that's really nice about that is if for some reason there's a reason that you want to see those panels come back, maybe there's a need, there's a desire, that there's funding, that there's that flexibility to allow for those additional panels to be replaced. Oh.
Real quick, just one thing I wanted to mention, and it's not in here, is that if we take this panel off that says Sundial Garden, the shopping and dining, it's not taking away the other signs that would be vehicular signs that would have that on there. The group thought that having those at like the other entrance points, plus these as the entry to the town, these would be the three major ones, just created a little redundancy, and for the cost, it didn't seem at the time to be as cost effective. So I just wanted to clarify that. So we're not getting rid of signs that say, the other things.
So now you've totally confused me. So what are you taking away?
So what's happening here is that there were three of these main big gateway signs that you see on the left. Those were the three major gateways, and then these other, and they were at the three entry points at Tom Darlington, one at Carefree Highway at the intersection at Carefree and Cape Creek and Tom Darlington, and then at Bloody Basin. So it'd be Bloody Basin, basically, those intersections. And then these minor gateway signs were at different locations throughout. And so what will happen is that these minor gateways will replace the three, and then the minor gateways themselves will not go to those other different locations. It was the most cost-effective way to be able to really knock a big chunk of the dollar amount down, and working with the consultant, really still get a good bang for our buck and still accomplish the goal. So.
Thank you.
Yep.
So the kiosk sign, have you already talked about that, or am I jumping the gun?
Oh, no, you're not jumping the gun at all. Basically, what the group had felt was that the cost and the potential maintenance costs of that being an electronic sign, while, sort of that's the way of the world right now, but I think just for those two factors, the idea was the design will be the same. The area that says below information that shows that map, that will be information that we can change in and change out. Hopefully it'll just sort of tend to be like you'll see a map and a guidance of where to go to different businesses, and that's why also the idea of QR codes that might be able to tell you here's the local businesses or here's the town events. There might even be more than one.
So that sits on the ground?
It does sit on the ground. Mm-hmm.
And how many of those are there? Are there two?
There's one.
Just one?
Mm-hmm. One where we have our existing kiosk sign.
The one that has paper buckling and...
The one that's the triangle, yes.
Yeah, okay.
So.
It's beautiful.
It is, you did a great job. So does it only show in one direction? I mean, is there a back and a front?
No, I believe it's two-sided. But that's a very good question. Electronically, no, it wasn't. So I think the details of the design will still need to be worked out, but
Okay.
I think the overall idea was for it not to be electronic and for the design not to change.
Okay, so the QR codes are a great way to get people moving with it. Okay.
Agree.
And I would note that in my conversations with my contemporaries in this space that are going through the exact same exercises or have experienced with the digital kiosks, they are actually replacing their digital kiosks with the QR codes for the very reasons of not being able to maintain, they break down, the sun just beats on them. So they are going that direction.
Interesting. Thank you.
But we'll keep talking more about some signs. We've got a couple more slides here. In terms of other things that came out of the discussions, so as we mentioned, the idea for this first implementation would be to install these 3 gateway features, the revised gateway features. There was a desire to focus on Tom Darlington and as well as the established entrances at the arches. We've kind of talked, and this might kind of get more into the discussion as we talk about circulation and parking. But I think the group felt that we've got those archways that, and we've always also felt too, that they are somewhat deficient in trying to really draw people into town center. But now just make those main entryways into town center and let the new signage support, that's where you would actually enter into the main part of town. Obviously, you have the other entryways that you can, but I think we're trying to celebrate those arches as really being the main entrances into town center. Again, simplifying signs, being 2-sided where possible, so we'll look into that. What the group talked about too was, and it was a really great observation in the sense that it was reducing redundancy of vehicular signs and pedestrian signs. And that was mostly within the town center core, not necessarily on the edges. I mean, because our town center is somewhat small, there was signage that you would look at that was related to being vehicular, but if you were near the amphitheater, more than likely you would be able to see that sign. So I think that's where a lot of the numbers were reduced. But we also talked about adding and being sure that, I mean, these aren't new signs, but that parking signs were clear. And again, that's the non-digital kiosk sign. That would be, it would go non-digital. Again, parking was kind of an eye-opener, and so we wanted to be sure that public parking was signed accordingly. We did want also, the group felt to keep existing functional signs where they were right now. For example, the planter signs that are roundabouts, those will stay, the ones that say Carefree for right now. But overall, we still have a very effective plan. There's new signs, there's move signs, there's repurposed signs. Basically, still there's a net reduction in the overall quantity, but the effectiveness of the wayfinding plan is still very strong.
So
Yeah.
we have a mishmash of signs around town. So what will you keep? What will you take away? Will everything work together so it looks like it's planned and not just?
Yes. Well, that will be coming to you during the recommendation portion. But what I can tell you is, yes, the mishmash will be gone. I think it's the things such as like the existing sundial signs, which are going to be repurposed. A couple may be stockpiled for a while. A couple may still remain in place. But the signs that are not basically part of this new vocabulary will be removed. I believe it's about 13 existing signs will be removed. That may include some of those banners, some of our light pole banners, but they'll go into detail about that. The consultant will, after we've kind of finished the stakeholder process. So with that said, again, the future signs in the plan will be evaluated by their effectiveness, determine the need and the future circulation, parking considerations, and infill redevelopment. This actually is related to our, well, I apologize, sort of additional considerations. So there's a whole banner here that's not there. And so what that means is that the group felt strongly about calling this project and determining phases. I think the idea, and it was an interesting conversation, was let's see how this first implementation of signs goes, and let's see how effective they are. Let's see if they're working, if they're not working. Let's take some time to have them in and then have the group come back and kind of reevaluate, and understand, and possibly we might get feedback from other entities, but it was really to kind of, rather than installing everything all at one time, for one, we didn't feel that was right, but to also call it in phases. I think the group didn't feel comfortable to say that we may absolutely install the rest of the sign plan. I mean, that's really going to be up to you. Again, mentioning the colors, there was a concern about some of the colors and being sure that the materials held up through kind of the test of time or have minimal maintenance costs. And as well as being sure that there was available budget to implement the plan. These are sort of our next steps. Kimley Horn is going to finalize the comprehensive sign plan. We'll get back with the stakeholder group to reach kind of buttoned up consensus. Bring this back to you April or May. There's a lot going on in April, but we're trying to get this sort of move forward so that, because we do want to allocate in the budget this year as well, the CIP budget for that first implementation portion. And as doing that, to do that, we need to prepare a bid package and get things squared away, get the process moving. So hopefully that first portion of the sign plan will be installed before the end of this year. Of course.
Just, she's play-by-play, I'm color commentary. So just real quickly, one of the things that actually was brought up, and so what you're going to see when the plan gets brought towards you is a lot of the traffic that we see coming into town generally comes up, and you look at the traffic numbers on Tom Darlington versus Cave Creek Road. And so most people who travel on Cave Creek Road generally are either returning back, or they're from here, or they're from the area, and so they're more familiar. So we start looking at how we could allocate and reduce costs for initial implementation. That was a consideration. So you'll see it's going to be very heavy on the Tom Darlington side. And one of the things we'll have to discuss is, what we really could and should be doing on the Cave Creek side. Also noting that on the Cave Creek side, we probably have more redevelopment and infill that still needs to occur, and that may impact the future signage. So just to kind of let you know, it may look unbalanced when you see it, but that's how that conversation went.
So this is my last slide, kind of final thought, because I know Steve is itching to make his presentation. I would say that I really think this overall process, with the most positive outcome was that the group really liked this idea of the sort of stakeholder opportunity to discuss more than just signage or circulation, to bring other kind of town ideas or concerns to this sort of level first before coming to either planning and zoning or town council. And so, for example, there's an idea of the town center gardens and what that should be. So not that it may necessarily be the same stakeholder group, but I think the idea of sort of having that kind of maybe grassroots discussion first before it comes in front of council with some ideas that we can kind of say we've kind of flushed through sort of the topic. So with that said, I think Steve is going to discuss the circulation and parking.
Well, not much to.
Are we saving questions on signage until after, Steve?
I'm going to be extremely brief with the circulation and parking. It's impossible. Yeah. So first of all, I just want to say I thought the stakeholder group to this date, with the revisions of the revised stakeholder group, and even the original stakeholder group, I think the conversation has been phenomenal. And I think it was extremely appropriate for us to reevaluate based when the budgetary numbers came in. And particularly when we start looking at how do you pay for this with limited budget and making sure that it fits nicely within the capital improvement plan. So I really commend the group taking an objective look, as well as the group really respecting each other's opinions and thoughts. There was never any interesting moments on the panel. And I think it is a model for us being able to evaluate other things. So with that said, as far as this group will continue on as we go through and look at circulation and parking, and I think they're very excited about that, and they're very cognizant of how that signage does fit into that. The one thing that is important to also note is that we had the conversation about what signage does, and signage isn't to bring people here. There's other things we do to bring people here as part of a destination. Signage is letting you know that you arrived, and then telling you kind of where you need to go from that point. So that really is the critical key part of what the signage does. And so as we look at all these different pieces to the puzzle, the gardens will play into that, our commercial retail spaces will play into that, and I think having more of these kinds of community conversations of getting people's input on how we can better address and manage those things, I think is going to be extremely powerful in being able to include the community in these discussions. And so we're going to continue on with the circulation and parking component to that, and hopefully we'll keep it more of a rapid pace so we can get that to the council hopefully within by the fall time frame at the latest, because it is a larger undertaking. But just want to let you know I think it's functioning extremely well, and I just really do appreciate everybody who has participated.
Okay, questions from council?
Yes, I think this is great news. On the signage, the gateway signs, removing the flags, I think is good, and I think the signs look good without the flags there. And I think in addition to, directing people, I think the signs add vitality to the town. It gives us continuity in the look. These are all important things in terms of, having a consistent look, getting rid of some of the older signs. I really like the idea of repurposing the Sundial signs. That's our history. So I think that's great. The idea of visiting the gardens, that's music to my ears. I walk my dog in the gardens, and I go to the farmer's market, and I see the craft shows. But I struggle with, the best use, whether, this should be a pristine garden and we, cut off some of these activities. Personally, I think we can do both. I think the gardens can be better, and I think that we can walk the gardens with our dogs and have the current activities that are currently going on. I see us layering in some more plants, creating some unique vignettes. I'm thankful for the gardens that we have today. Yes, they can be a little bit better.
Stacy, can you go back to the slide where you talked about the cost, please? I think that was the other way. Or maybe not, sorry.
Did you have the numbers on it?
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay, that one.
Okay, so, the 660, does that include the 350? Or it's the 350 and the 660?
No, 660 is the overall new budget.
Okay, okay.
Stacy, go ahead. The kiosks, it seems to me that you had mentioned there's only going to be one. I would think that we would have more than one, each located where the entrances are to the town and or the major areas for parking. And then the other question is, are they lit for people visiting us in the evening?
Mayor, Councilmember Hatcher, there is only one. I don't remember if there was originally more than one. I think part of that, again, was this consolidation and reduction to save cost or reduce cost. There is another component, a different type of sign, which I think you might be referring to, which we aren't, I should keep saying we, which the group didn't look at proposing in this first implementation. We call them the map signs, and you've probably seen them in a lot of places. They're pretty typical looking, where it's a map and it's sort of at a key location so you can kind of see where you want to go.
Kind of small.
They're smaller, and they're kind of more at sort of, like table height.
Right,
So,
waist level.
I mean, we can take that sort of discussion back to the group and say, again, we're trying to work within a budget, within a limitation and a
Well, it just seems
concern.
like-
But definitely something that we can talk again about. It kind of, that conversation, we talked about it, some people, some were on board, some were not. I think, again, it was trying to, again, get an implementation phase that met a budget. But I think that might be the next level versus having, a number of kiosks throughout the town
I'm
center.
suggesting a number just at the main entrances, but
More than one.
with respect to what Steve mentioned, that the majority of visitors come through the Tom Darlington entrance, I assume that's where you're going to place that, the one we have. But it
Well-
just seems logical to have
You're-
one in
you're-
each entrance.
You're in cars when you're coming in the entrances.
Right, I
And
think,
so these kiosks need to be in a place where people.
Well, they park.
Well, but people are walking and they can stop and they can look. So I'm guessing that the one that you're talking about is where our current one is, to the north of the pavilion stage. And I think originally we were talking about another one that was maybe coming in from the sundial.
or the 100 Easy, was
In
it
total,
around?
there was originally 3 kiosks that were planned. One I think was by Spanish Village, one was where we currently have one, and then another one I think was closer
Maybe
to
around
the
100 Easy Street?
100 Easy Street or
Yeah.
the hotel. I can't remember. So, but having the 3 of them, they're about $20,000 each without the the digital ones I think were significantly more.
Right.
And so, again, just looking at ways to cut back, doesn't mean that, this is something we bring back to the group, and they, I think some members are here so they can hear what the council comment is, and that's, I think it's for further conversation.
And I would like, so if I could, Councilmember Hatcher, I think you might be thinking, I don't mean to presume, but these are pedestrian signs, right? So they're signs that you want to walk
Yeah.
up to. There actually are more signs that fall within the $350,000 to $400,000 budget. I just went through the discussions and things that have changed. But there will be vehicular signs that have the flags that direct you to specific locations. So those are sort of more, as Vice Mayor Cora had said, sort of vehicular-related signs. And so the kiosks are a little bit more on the pedestrian level.
And the idea on the digital signage, lifespan, replacement costs, weather, beating on these things, and everybody is going to QR codes now. So even posting a QR code on a piece of paper with people utilizing their smartphones, they're going to get a lot more mileage. We're going to save a lot of money too.
Okay. Any other questions from council?
Are you done with your presentation?
Well, what I'd like to do is if there's any members from the committee that would like to come up and provide any of their 2 cents in, because again, this is just an update. We're not taking, there's no vote, there's no.
Yeah, I just wanted to compliment the group. I think that the design and the way everything pulls together looks really good. And I think it'll make our town look better.
Okay.
Did you want to speak? Go ahead.
Hi, thank you. I will say, I think in this group, we've made a lot of headway and have listened to everybody. I will say we're not always in agreement. So trying to look at what the budget is, trying to look really what the town needs, trying to look at the whole overall project. Like, some of these numbers are still a little high. I know we're still looking at that, Steve, so I just have to put that out there. And I think we want to be clear, because after our last meeting, that's when I reached out to Stacy, we have some really great signs currently. We have some other ones that are not so much. And we need to be really clear and that these signs that are here are doing their job, because I want to make sure that if we remove a bunch of signs and then the businesses are like, oh my gosh, now I have nothing. So we have to be careful. And I think that's why we decided we need another meeting, walk through, kind of figure out this is where it's going. Okay, we can remove this, we can move that. I just want to make sure that's done before we go to the council, that everybody is clear. And it may be that this initial implementation or this initial, it's not a phase, it's just our recommendation. It may be the only one that we need. And I would go back and look at the proposal, because I actually thought the area maps were in the recommendation. So I'd have to go back and look at that and see. But yeah, anyways, that's my 2 cents.
Okay, thank you. You have other stakeholders to speak tonight?
It's if they wish to, anybody who's in attendance here.
Yeah, I'll just say real quick. Hi again. First of all, it's been a pleasure to be a part of the stakeholder group. I've actually really enjoyed it. And I think one thing that came away, especially when we did the walkthrough around town, is we realized like how many, based on the current proposal or the original proposal of 63, the redundancy was going to be like, it was very, very clear. Like, we really don't need as many signs as were initially proposed. And I think walking around town and actually having an idea with the map of where all the signs would be, it was very evident that we could get away possibly with a lot fewer signs. And then also, I think one key takeaway too was, I think Stacy mentioned it, was after we have our first phase or initial implementation, whatever we're calling it, is to definitely do like a retrospective where we actually talk with the businesses and say, hey, are these signs working for you? What changes do we need? Are you seeing an uptick in your businesses? Things like that, because I think that that's one thing that we really want to make sure that what we have implemented really has been benefiting the community, and definitely decide that before we move on to any future phases and decide if we want to spend more money. So that was one thing that I thought was really important. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
That's it.
Is that it? Okay. I have some questions myself, but do you have other folks who may wish to speak? So I would just suggest that once you're at a stage you're about to bring this to council, that we have an opportunity to go on like a walking tour. Any council member who wishes to, no more than 3 at a time, but I personally, it would be invaluable. So just to put that in your heads. The stakeholders, so we have a lot of things which, if we're going to bring this to council in April, there's a lot of things that are supposed to happen. One, the stakeholder group gets another look at this thing, and there should be discussions with businesses. That's kind of what I took away. So I would like to see it in April, but I wanted to see it done right, and I want to have a tour, a walkabout.
It may be a little bit later, yes.
But I'm anxious to get it done. We postponed it. We tabled this thing 8 months ago, and I think in retrospect, looking back, for the better. I think we have the stakeholder group has come together. We've melded a lot of different perspectives. Maybe not everyone agrees with each other, but at least there's good conversations, and a consensus has been arrived, or on the cusp of it, or we're getting close. So I'm glad to see that. And then lastly, the idea of taking what we've learned, what we've experienced here, with applying that to the garden discussion. Because in the garden we have different constituents. So we have artists, we have folks who just walk around, we have dog walkers, and we have businesses. So they all have an interest in what we do in the garden. So I like that idea, and I'm glad to hear it, and I think it'll be productive. And one last question, and I believe it was touched on, but we talk about sign effectiveness and how they can be determined. So one way to do it is, poll the businesses, but I'd be interested in hearing other ways to do that, or how that can be done.
Mayor, Council, one of the things that we recently did is I actually was able to purchase a program that allows us to track visitor data. And so it's actually a tool that pretty much all the other little downtowns use to measure the visitor traffic data that utilizes cell phones. So I should be getting that loaded up, and I'll be able to start tracking that data. So that's one of the metrics that we'll use as we start looking at the effectiveness of various different things, and start looking, what the baseline metrics are for the town and visitor traffic. We can even do like special events or anything. We'll be able to really analyze how much, and it shows where they're coming from too. So it's a really powerful tool, and I'll do a little update on that in the future of what that tool looks like.
Yeah, I would certainly say we need to get a baseline. I mean, doing it after you have the signs, then we don't know the impact. So I would get a baseline, for sure. Okay, any other comments or questions from council?
So Steve, does that go back historically at all, or does that go forward?
We just signed up with them, so I'll have to check out if we can go back. I'm pretty sure that we can probably look at past data, because actually I know we can, because when I did the presentation, they actually looked at some of the events that we had that were in the far past, to see how many people were actually coming to the Thunderbird Art Show, and so they do have that data.
So one other question, so if I understand the timeline again, maybe you can go back to that, but Kimley Horn's gonna come back with a new design, then it's gonna go to the stakeholder committee for review, and then it will come to us after we've done a walk around. Is that
correct?
Correct.
So will we be able to track how many people use the QR codes? So you were saying that they can walk around with their cell phone and grab QR codes. Can we track that?
I have no idea. I'm over 50. I don't know that answer.
No, I mean, Madison can probably do that, because it'll be linking them
The
to
answer is
something
yes.
on our website.
I know they can.
Yeah.
They can.
See, I wasn't really asking you, I was asking the gentleman behind you.
Okay. You put me on the spot there. I was like,
Okay.
The one who's under 50.
Okay, if there's no other questions from council, we have one public comment, or maybe two, I'm not sure. One public comment from Wendy Mattis on this agenda item. Okay, thank you. And Mr. Bob Browners, I'm not sure if you want to speak on this item or at call to the public. Okay, thank you, sir. So I believe this item is over. We've wrapped this up.
Correct.
Any other comments from you? Okay, great. Well, thank you all for that good discussion, and we look forward to having you come back, hopefully in April. Item number 9, review, discussion, and possible approval for the Desert Foothills Land Trust event road closure on April 4th, 2024. Mr. Popopek?
Yeah, Mayor, Council, actually, before I start, I'm going to go ahead, and I think there's Ms. Sue Hardy going to do a little presentation on the event itself.
Okay.
And we'll talk about the road closure.
Well, thanks very much. I don't need to say much, except I am not a member of the board of the Desert Foothills Land Trust. However, I'm impressed with what the Desert Foothills Land Trust has done with very few resources. They don't have funding from government organizations or agencies, and rely a great deal on the tremendous generosity of our community. And I've been quite impressed with that and thought I'd like to help a little bit in any way I can, and so got involved with helping to plan the April 4th, what we've come to call the Spring Fling. The idea being we want you to come and join us and enjoy the great outdoors in the pavilion under the stars, enjoy good music from the Lucky Devils Band, good food from a couple of food trucks. It's going to be, I think, a little more casual than fundraisers have been for the Land Trust in the past, and I'm glad for that. I'm impressed with the, as a matter of fact, missing the speakers series tonight that they're having over at the Holland Center. They're doing that on a monthly basis. The programs, the educational programs they do about our fragile and beautiful Sonoran Desert are phenomenal. The Desert Discovery Days for children and families are wonderful ways to heighten awareness about the need for conservation in our beautiful community. So I've brought a few flyers. May I leave some on the table for people to pick up?
Sure.
And I'm just, again, to express my gratitude for the support from the City of Carefree and letting us have this event in the pavilion.
Okay, great. Well, thank you very much. So our mission tonight is to approve a road closure.
Yeah, Mayor and Council, as you know, that when we do events at the pavilion, you know, for safety issues, and I think this event's actually going to kind of spill across into the street as well as going into the other side of the gardens. It's on a Thursday evening, and so it shouldn't really have a large impact on businesses as it goes into the evening. Though they will be needing to set up, so we're looking at the road closure to start at 3, just so they can start the general setup. We'll try to push that back as far as we can to not interfere. And but most of it will be through the evening, and it's the section of Ho-Hum that goes between 100 Easy Street and Easy Street.
So is that where their food trucks would go?
Yeah, I believe they're having some food trucks in there as well as a bar cart, and I think they may set some tables in there for where they'll have some of the bar services.
Okay. Any other questions from council? So I would accept a motion to approve the road closure as described in our packet for the Desert Foothills Land Trust Spring Fling on April 4th.
Motion to approve road closure for Spring Fling Desert Foothills Land Trust event on April 4th, 2024.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you, and thank you for the presentation. Item number 10, Economic Development Update by Economic Development Director Steve Propopek.
Wow, it's like my show here. I need to find the presentation. Oh, look at that. Yeah, Mayor, Council, as I presented the economic development, the 24-month strategic plan or work plan, one of the comments that was made was to come back on a quarterly basis and be able to provide updates as far as what's going on in economic development. I also would like to say that one of the things that we've done is we've ramped up the Economic Development Advisory Board. So we're trying to have monthly meetings. I'm not sure we're going to have a meeting coming up in this month because of the general plan update discussion. It's just gonna overload the agendas, but part of that goal is to make sure that the council and the community has the opportunity to understand what we're doing as far as economic development, what those priorities are, and where those statuses are, as much as we can say what the status is. And so one of the key areas that was brought up into the plan and one of the focus areas is Carefree Highway and Cave Creek Road. We have both the Lowe's Center on the northwest corner, and then we also have the vacant land, which would be the Carefree Quarter on the northeast center. Been working on the old CVS site. It's about 13,800 square feet. Made a real hard press for Trader Joe's there. I thought we had it. I thought it was really close. We looked to readjust the parking. That was one of their biggest concerns. And when it went to their representatives brought it to their decision makers, and their decision makers really are just holding off on making a decision for this market in the coming future. So we were a little disappointed about that. We've engaged, other tenants. It's difficult to find somebody for that specific type of building. I mean, it was a CVS, so what, Walgreens is the other opportunity. And so you start looking at that size of building, that type of layout, it's a little tough. So one of the things that the community had asked for, and I know it's interesting that everybody was talking about wanting to bring like liquor stores. So yeah. But
we got some other ideas too, Steve.
Yeah, correct. Well, I'll be honest with you, the other one I was looking at, because we actually had somebody talk about it, was looking at some sporting goods, more focused in and around shooting ranges, so like a C2 tactical type. And so just trying to find something that, would kind of bring some interest to the place, or entertainment value, or whatever that would fit into that type of building. Total Wine, the building's too small, BevMo's too big. And one of the interesting concepts we just ran through, and we're still working on trying to bring them there, is a group called Trevor's. They've opened up, I think, 3 locations now in the Phoenix Scottsdale area. They're looking at another location at Paradise Valley Mall, which actually has a liquor store concept along with a restaurant and cigar lounge. So these are the ones that we're just trying to find that are growing, that would really fit in, and try to get that interest. So that I know they reviewed it over the weekend, and we'll continue that conversation there. And then as far as the Carefree Quarter goes, obviously this is the site that, had the, owned by Empire. I know people aren't familiar, but it currently had a proposal on it that had apartments.
This is the northeast corner.
Northeast corner. And so that is the key site. And obviously for people who don't know, aren't familiar with it, that site is part of the general plan that it has for commercial. It does have zoning for a commercial center. And so, and that was done by the owner, who is Empire Communities. And so they actually originally tried to sell it to a couple different developers who had different proposals. Those didn't go through for various reasons. And so we were able to communicate with them, and they've agreed that they're going to look to self-perform. They did partner up with a group called Diversified Partners, which has been around for a long time, a company headed up by a guy named Walt Brown, who's worked closely with large retail developers such as Westcor, which is now Macerich, and then a lot of other developers in town, as well as developing their own sites. And so, but we knew we had challenges on the site, and Empire was willing to spend the money to try to address those challenges, one of them being the wash. They did look at new flow data for that particular wash, which showed it doesn't need to have as much there's not as much flow that's going through it, so there could be an opportunity to reduce the costs for the wash relocation that would be required. And they took that to the flood control district. Well, they passed it on through us. We pushed it through to the flood control district, and the information did come back positive that they agree that the flows have been reduced. So that's a positive that we're working on to try to find ways to reduce the on-site costs of the site. And then they're also looking at assessing all the off-site and on-site utilities. They're working with Liberty, working with the Carefree Water Company, and they've already met with Greg, who's given them all the information on where availability of water lines are, what needs to be built to fill in those particular gaps to serve their property. And then we are now putting together a monthly meeting where we'll be talking to them about these specific issues as well as leasing for the site. And they have a pretty solid leasing team that's been very active and providing us lists of particular tenants that they're looking for. And I know they've been very successful in securing some letters of intent. The one interesting thing I'd like to discuss here, though, is when you have an existing building that's 12,000, or 13,000 to 14,000 square feet, and you have a development that has 3 spaces that are 12 to 15,000 square feet, there is some competition that I think is going on here, and it's one of the more difficult discussions we've had as far as trying to figure out what kind of tenancy we're going to see across the street. And what we don't want to do is take a tenant that's going to keep one project from not happening. So it's very, very touchy as far as how this tenancy goes to have, that many spaces. So we're going to try to work as diligently as possible to try to put as many types of tenants in front of them as possible. And so, so that's just wanted to bring that up. It does create a unique, I don't want to say a challenge, but it's something that we're definitely conscious of. The other one we're looking at is the area is Carefree Town Center, and I'm not going to spend a ton of time. This has been a year. We're seeing some revitalization, but the communications that I've been having with property owners has been extremely positive. A very great relationship with Spanish Village. We're working on ways. I don't know, everybody knows that Black Mountain is looking to expand on that particular site, and so as part of that, they're looking to expand parking for on-site parking, as well as cleaning up the alleyway behind where Black Mountain is to be able to screen the grease trap and really just make that a lot more appealing. And so they did hire, or they brought in a contractor that has been assessing that. We met, Stacy and I both met with that contractor and with their building representative to start to have those conversations. And one of the things we'll do is actually bring Councilmember Miller in to help kind of just provide some architectural guidance as we start to look at that as well, and they're completely open to that. And still working diligently to try to figure out how we can address the blight that's behind the Shell station. And so one of the things that we did have is we had the building inspector, chief building official, go take a look at those and to declare that those buildings really aren't occupiable, and we'll be looking at ways that we can deal with the removal of those particular buildings, which would help remove a blight and at the same time maybe possibly open up property for other uses such as parking, which would be definitely welcomed. And then, one of the things that we've been working on is trying to put together a merchant group. And, merchant groups aren't the easiest things to put together. I know the towns have probably had them in the past and they've gone away and they come back, and so, but we're going to continue to work with that. I think we've got a solid foundation for a merchant group. We've had some good conversations. Madison has actually been very instrumental in trying to set up some of those meetings and really starting to facilitate that conversation, and hopefully we can get better at our communication as it goes back out to businesses as it relates to the things that are happening in the town, as well as issues that they need to be, they want to bring up to the town. And ultimately it'd be great to have that group of merchant voices that can be consolidated to be able to provide guidance to council on issues for that particular stakeholder or constituency in the town, because it's important. They do generate the revenue that pays for our services. So it is important, and they're very well needed. At the same time, I'd like to say we do deal with a lot of mom and pops here at the merchant level, and it is our unique value, and so we need to make sure that we're striking that balance still. We've been really working hard at the utilization of the Sanderson Lincoln Pavilion and increasing that. We added the Sanderson Saturdays. We've added a lot more events. We're bringing in more community activities. We did our first movie night in the first time that I was in here for 4 years, and it was very successful. So we'll keep building upon utilization of that, and particularly not only as a community asset, but an asset that will enhance other events and activities such as Third Thursday Art Walk. And as well as being able to provide more of a customer experience for people who are just visiting the town. So Sanderson Saturdays specifically is from 1 to 3 every Saturday, whether it's an event or some kind of music or activity. It's really to add to the ambiance of the experience that a customer has as they come, whether they're shopping or looking through the gardens, to give them, just really add to that layering. And then the Third Thursday Art Walk, actually, we're now going into our 4th year, I believe, and it's been growing, and I think the art galleries have seen the value to it. Every art gallery I've talked to said that every year's been more successful since the first. I think it's been a great way for us to partner with the art galleries. We do actually participate on a 50-50 split on our advertising. And the first 50-50 split actually ended up being probably about an 80-20, where we paid 80. That's okay. It grew, and I think we're now pretty close to that 50-50 split. So they're seeing the value of the program, and we'll continue to build upon that. And our occupancy rates right now in town are really strong. It's probably the strongest I've ever seen. And when I got here, I think we were probably right around 70 to 75% occupied, and I think we slipped a little bit under around 95% total occupancy of space that's actually on the market. So.
Steve, I have a question. Is there anything going on with Rod's property to Santa Fe?
So, Councilmember DeLisio, at this point, we try to continue to have conversations with all property owners. It's one of the properties, of other properties that we have that we just need to address as far as when we look at, again, it kind of comes to this pieces to the puzzle. We have the gardens, we're talking about signage, all the components that create part of what makes Carefree a destination and what people are going to be left with. And one of those discussions we're going to have is really talking about our private physical space and how that, how that fits into the overall piece of the puzzle. Are there ways that we can work with these particular property owners in a positive and constructive manner? And I will tell you, like we have with Spanish Village, like we're developing with 100 Easy Street. They're looking at doing a building rebrand right now, as well as new signage packaging. As far as Los Portales goes, we really haven't had any headway or movement, though there are new tenants in there, and the top floor of that building is probably right around, I think, almost 80%, 85% occupied. But again, bathrooms aren't open. There's
but we have an issue with ADA and not having an elevator and stairs and
So I try not to make these things personal with particular property owners, and I know that we have issues with properties. And so that we'll continue to try to figure out ways that we can manage that. One of the things that we're going to be focusing on in the future is as we start looking at design and design guidelines and guidelines for buildings, as well as being able to make sure that buildings are up to code. Our new code requires that all tenant improvement spaces have a certificate of occupancy, and not all businesses have certificate of occupancies here. So we're going to work on programs that can bring businesses up to the code, and not do it where we're penalizing them. It is more about just trying to find ways to get them, because if they ever want to sell their building or sell their space or whatever they're doing, they'll have all the necessary documentation for that. So the other things we look at, though, are just looking at code in general. One of the projects I'm going to be working on this particular quarter is looking at non-conforming uses and how non-conforming uses that are within our commercial spaces and how they're kind of pretty much taking up retail space that should be utilized. And so it's just making sure that we have better utilization of that retail space. And again, here's the next quarter focus. The Carefree quarter is the #1 priority. I'm very conservative usually when I think about the percentage chance of something happening, and I would say I'd give this one it's 40%. That's very, very high for me. And and I think I do feel like this is a project that the path that they're on, and if we can make sure that we work through all the issues, I feel very, very, very good about this project probably breaking ground within the next 24 months. So that's just, I don't want to set too much of an expectation, but I'd never say stuff like this, but I do feel very confident, and I think they're extremely committed to this, to getting this done. Again, we just talked about the comprehensive sign plan. One other thing that we're going to do is initiate the town hall RFP, and one of the issues that we've dealt with over this last year were just rising interest rates. There was really no commercial money available. Trying to do an RFP for a commercial building on a town site like that probably didn't make the most sense under the economic climate, as well as again, we're building this way of being able to engage the community through the Economic Development Advisory Board, being able to update. It's a critical project, and I want to make sure that we do set a pathway for conversation and communication, so people have expectations of what will actually end up being done there. So the next step will be able to take an RFP to the Economic Development Advisory Board, and then we can start having that more informal workshop conversation. And again, at those particular meetings, we do solicit community input. So it's just a great way to try to be able to solicit that input, and that before anything goes to leadership, hopefully we vetted it pretty well throughout the community. Again, we talked about addressing some of these blighted areas. Another one I'm specifically working with our attorney's office is on the parking lot right here, and finding ways to make sure that this parking lot is up to standard. Again, working at one of the ways we're looking at a facade program, and I'm talking with some of the property owners, is that maybe what we'll do is work through a development agreement potentially with some of them for who are looking to improve their facades, and through that maybe create an opportunity in the foundation for a program that we can bring back. So that might be the approach that we take, because then we can really work on a real world improvement that we'd like to see into the town, and that could be the model for how we move forward.
Hey, Steve, how many blighted areas have you identified?
So I would say the true blighted area that of building blight, because blight could be a lot of different things. So when we look at visual blight, obviously, that whole Shell Station corner is a disaster as far as I'm concerned. I mean, even the Shell Station itself
is bad.
Is looking pretty long. Until I don't think people realize it's the first building outside of the town hall. It was the first commercial building built in town, and it looks like it. So, and it's not to say that that couldn't still be a gas station or viable, but I think there's opportunity that we can start to work with that. And that site actually is kind of interesting. It was owned by a single owner, then that owner was bought out by another group who really just owns a petroleum company. They have a couple gas stations. They actually sold the property and now lease the convenience store and gas station back. So I don't know how long their lease is, and I don't know what the long term for the property owner is, but I know that they do build new gas station facilities. So there could be an opportunity in the future that maybe with this lease expires, I'd have to look at it, that we can look at the redevelopment of that site for something else.
Steve, what about that area behind the Bank of America, kind of that wash area that's, real quickly, anything going on there, any prospects of what can be done?
Yeah, Councilmember Delicio, so you're talking about the vacant land right behind Carefree Plaza, kind of off Carefree Drive there. So that is owned by a local named Scott Whalen, and he's done other projects around town. And he has purchased that and wants to put residential on that, so it'd be more of a townhome type or condo type project. And so our mixed use designation allows for residential as part on Easy Street, but it doesn't allow for it on Carefree Drive. So we're gonna have to look at a process if that's the kind of project he wants to put there, which makes a lot of sense, to be honest with you, because it's not really the highest value. Best value isn't commercial on that, and we don't need any more office in the town center. So so it would be a continuation of kind of, I'm not saying exactly the view, but of having some kind of residential there. And he's going to be looking at ways, he wants to get the project done, and so I think he spoke at a council meeting and presented it kind of briefly in his 3 minutes of fame. And but he does want to engage the community as far as moving that project forward. And then the other thing that we do as a department, and this is our busy time, is events. So,
one more question, Steve. The drugstore is designed like typical drugstores. There's only glass on one wall. Has that been an issue for you? It's ideal for like a Trevor's, I can see that, but has that been an issue for you in trying to market that building?
Councilmember Hatcher, it hasn't been an issue for marketing the building. I would say that the biggest issue for that site is really the access, and then limited parking. So if you're going to put a restaurant on there, it doesn't have restaurant parking, so somebody would have to come in and expand the parking lot. Good news is that there's a massive landscape setback there. So if you start looking at what's been developed down the street, those setbacks are pretty meager, and so it doesn't mean that we really make it look horrible, but it does allow for the opportunity to potentially expand the parking area.
Any other questions from council?
Mike Johnson. I have a question. We noticed some heavy equipment, a water truck and a bulldozer on the northeast corner. Are they about to commence some kind of construction? Question one. Question two is, has it been permitted? Question three, have we seen any design with respect to what they're going to build? I'd like to flesh that out. Some of the residents have made note of that, so this is probably a good question.
Yes, Councilman Johnson, yeah, that's good questions. I have to go look, because I did see that there was some material out there that was stacked, like some like gravel or rock. One of the things they had asked about was like during the Phoenix Open, that if they had prospective tenants, that they could actually have just a little area that was in the on-site that they could bring potential tenants to, because it's really hard to walk around. But I don't know if they actually went through and got anything permitted on that. So it's one of the things, I just saw that there was something out there today as well. As a matter of fact, I wanted to talk to them about that.
I'm sorry, maybe it's what?
Sorry. Thought Steve might be able to add it. Maybe they're doing some due diligence on the property. I don't know either. But I mean, we'll talk. I think we have a meeting scheduled with them. But to answer Councilmember Johnson's question, no, there's no proposal.
Okay,
Mayor, members of
3
council,
minutes.
just 3 minutes exactly. I have 4.5 minutes. That's the staging for the street maintenance project. As you recall, the west and south sides are going to be treated in the next month. They need a place to stage in Carefree. There's limited places to stage, so they are using a portion of that corner to stage the product.
Okay, great. So we just got to make sure when they're done that it's looking good.
Yeah. And to answer some of the other question, and I just wanted to reiterate that the intention of the developer is to stick with the, in as much as possible with the existing site plan. It may be modified to some extent, but the character is to be a retail center. And I believe right now they're showing like right around 120,000 square feet of retail. So that would be in line with what was approved. And then we did send them the approved, or the elevations that were approved as part of the zoning. So they do have the design information that we sent to them.
Okay, great. Any other questions or comments? I would just say there's non-conforming uses that should be a priority, because one, this opportunity costs less to us, and two, it hurts their neighbors. So, okay, nothing else? This is this was just information only, so thank you.
Thank you.
Good job.
Thank you.
Next up is call to the public. Those wishing to address the council need not request permission in advance. The public may address the council on matters not on the agenda. At the conclusion of an open call to the public, individual members of the public body may respond to criticism made by those who have addressed the public body, may ask staff to review a matter, direct staff to study the matter, reschedule the matter for further consideration and decision at a later date, or may ask that a matter be put on a future agenda. However, the council may not discuss or take legal action at this time, so please limit your comments to no more than 3 minutes. So first up, Ariane Buser.
Hello again. Ariane Buser, Carefree resident. I just had a couple of comments specifically about the general plan. So, as you know, last year we had a lot of working sessions, like sessions that went over an hour, multiple sessions with Matt from the team, and we had boards up with Post-its and everything, and then when the commentary period came out, we had a whole bunch of residents, hundreds of residents provide their input. Of course, then once we get the draft, it's interesting to look through and not see a lot of those resident comments in the draft plan that has been circulated. So it's kind of interesting as to why we spend all that time as residents providing our input when that information doesn't actually get into the general draft itself. And then I also noticed that we have some additional working sessions set up, which I appreciate that, but after, I mean, what is the purpose of those working sessions? Is that going to lead to yet another 60-day review period? Are we allowed, as residents, are we allowed to give our input? And so I guess I'm just a little concerned. It seems like, you know, the consultant company and then everyone that was involved, all they did was just check the box to say, yep, we allowed residents to give their input, and isn't that just great? But we're still going to move forward with what we want to do in our agenda items. And so I think that's kind of the feeling that I got, honestly, when I was looking through the general draft and seeing and comparing that to what the residents had provided from their comments, and then looking at the revised draft that has been sent out and that we will then now be looking at the upcoming working session. So I guess I was just trying to understand what the purpose of these additional working sessions are, and you know, is this really going to be something that residents once again can try and provide their input on, and then hope with the intent of hopefully seeing that in the general plan itself? Because as you all know, we will be voting on this as voters, and this was supposed to be a resident-driven process, which I think a lot of us took the time and the effort to make that a priority, because we do want to see what is best for this town and try and make some positive changes here. So I just was a little concerned, honestly, about seeing that revised draft come out, especially after a lot of us took many hours out of our busy schedules to be a part of those working sessions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Bob Browners.
Good evening, Bob Rowers, Carefree resident. I'm here tonight representing Our Lady of Joy Parish and the Knights of Columbus group, the Ladies Guild, Mothers Guild, that is part of that big community. There's just a quick, small promo. Over the last 20 years, we've are able to garner over $4.1 million for charities centered in Phoenix, primarily St. Vincent de Paul, and their big project to help the homeless of all creeds, of all religions, and including their pet therapy program. And we've also had thousands of coats and numerous hundreds of pints of blood, and we've been a pretty active group. And akin to the signage idea, we had an idea that, well, when you go into Wickenburg, you see a sign with Lions Club and the Legion and the Kiwanis and the Knights of Columbus, and it'd be nice to have a place, you know, somewhere centered around Carefree for those small 12-inch diameter logos for the key volunteer service community foundational groups. And so that was my kind of pitch, was to, hey, can we kind of incorporate that into the signage plan? Failing that, I've come here seeking advocacy for that little sign that the town of Cave Creek has near the Lowe's. When you come up, you can see there's a little Catholic Daughters sign, and Cave Creek has a few of their pet organizations with signage. Well, we could just put our Knights of Columbus thing there. That's an alternative if we can't fit into the Carefree plan. But it begs a question, though. I mean, sure, the Legion should do something there too, and the Kiwanis should do something there too, but maybe they just haven't had the time or opportunity. We have signs at the ready that we could do that, and so we wanted to, you know, just put the committee wherever the right place is, this idea, either something in Carefree or advocacy from the Planning Commission here to tell Cave Creek to let us put it on their sign, because it is coming up from that area into this locale. So that was kind of our 2-bullet point presentation on this item, and thank you for your consideration.
Okay, well, thank you. Mr. John Mattis.
John Mattis, Carefree resident. On the 4th of January, I submitted a code of conduct violation. I got 2 updates by calling the mayor. One was an email went out. Some people didn't answer it, so a second email went out. Haven't heard anything since then. February 27th, I sent this to town attorney. He responded back yesterday, and in his response, I was a little perplexed. Says your allegation did not identify anybody. Correct, except it was inside the town of Carefree. And the second was acknowledged was public information. That is correct, which was supposed to be covered in 3 days by the mayor at the council meeting. And when we talked, it was a little upsetting that that was not the case. And then, this is what I don't understand. The town does not have a specific individual to investigate and your allegation doesn't set forth a direct and specific violation of the code of conduct. I guess he missed the bolded section of my email. It said Resolution 1302, or 2013-02, Item 3, subsection D. Elected and appointed officials shall not place themselves in situations where their honesty and integrity may be questioned, should not behave improperly, and on all occasions avoid the appearance of such behavior. I think this definitely violated that code. It says it's a policy for the town, yet I don't see anything happening. And as far as the town doesn't have a specific individual, the code states that the conduct policy states an independent and legal or other experts may be utilized to conduct an unbiased investigation. Got 45 years in law enforcement, investigative knowledge, apprehensions from investigations, and I'll volunteer pro bono. I'll do it. Give me the option, give me the resources as far as the information I need, people to interview, I'll be happy to do that. The thing that's frustrating is, I don't know, be quite honest with Ms. Gibbons, what you read on the statements that you stated back in your email to me. It's a clear violation of the code of conduct. There's an election coming up. 3 seats are open. I don't know who's running, but it's going to be a real hard thing to say it wasn't me. Who's going to believe you? I know there are a number of residents that don't.
That's your 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mattis, I specifically told you, more importantly, however, I do not see how providing a letter, which you acknowledge is public information, to a citizen pursuant to a public records request would be a violation of the code of conduct. I specifically told you that. You and I simply disagree that this is a violation of the code of conduct. I also told you, Mr. Mattis, I'm not going to debate you. Let's just be honest with the email I sent you. That's it. We're done.
I'm being honest.
Mr. Mattis, we're done.
Okay, let's move on.
Sit
Let's
down.
move on.
You've had your 3 minutes. I responded to
Diane
your
Roth?
criticism. Please sit down.
I will send you the First Amendment to
Thank you.
address your grievance.
No problem.
Okey-dokey. Diane Roth, resident of Carefree, less controversial. Mine are just simple questions. How much have we spent on consultants lately? What have we gotten for our money? How have the consultants made the town better? What new ideas have they brought to us? We're going over the budget for the signs. That's $660,000. Does it include the money we already gave Kimley Horn in a consultant fee, which I think was quite significant? And another thing, why did we pay a consultant to analyze our town payroll? You can go online and you can get the payrolls from comparable towns, and in about 3 hours, analyze what they're being paid. And I had a big problem with that charming man who spent many hours, and I'd love to know how much, analyzing a payroll for a town of 3,600 people and 8.8 square miles. Why we were being compared to Phoenix, Scottsdale, Paradise Valley, when the towns that have our populations are Taylor, Clifton, Cornville, and Pine Top. I didn't hear any of those names. So if you're going to do an analysis as a paid consultant, shouldn't you analyze comparable towns and not towns with budgets of up to 100 million, which is one of them, and populations of 12,000 to 1.6 million, when we're 3,600? So just inquiring minds would like to know the answers. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So that concludes call to the public. So council is welcome to respond to criticism. Although I'm not sure I heard anything that was personal, but welcome to it.
I think, Diane, to address the question related to why did we bring in an outside party or advisor, analyst, if you will, was to keep it independent. We had to be completely neutral on that. And that's what that guy does, obviously, bless his heart. But, you know, the question came up several times, as you well know, last year about salaries and so forth. So we wanted to nip it in the bud, hire an outside consultant. That's what he does for a living. We did that. His fee was his fee, whatever that might have been. There's not too many people who do that type of work. And I think we brought that discussion to a close. I don't know any other way to.
So Mr.
address it.
Fitzgibbons, make sure we stay within the law here.
Yeah, that's all.
Criticized about consultants.
Okay, I just want to make sure.
Yeah. The, yeah. I think we need to understand the fact that this is metropolitan Phoenix, and these people that work here live within metropolitan Phoenix. They don't live in Hopi. They don't live in Alchesay. They don't live in many farms where the cost of living is probably 1/3 to 1/4 of what it is here. So we're dealing with rents, with mortgages that are commensurate with Scottsdale, with North Phoenix, with Peoria, with Sunrise Mountain area, the northwest side of town. Regarding the criticism on consultants, every major project that we've had here requires the use of consultants. It's scalable in that we don't have town staff on the ready with certifications, with credentials. We simply can't afford to do that, and they'd be sitting around half the time doing nothing until these projects come along. So it needs to be understood that we bring in consultants, contract those consultants to work on those major projects, and then they're done, and they go away. And so it is actually a cost-effective use of getting projects done, so that we have our small staff that works on things that they work on day to day, and even our building inspector now is an outside consultant. So those are things that we need to study and consider. And I understand the criticism. We're a town of 3,600, but where do these people live? They don't live in these areas that are of equal size of ours. They live in the same areas where you have folks that work in Scottsdale, that work in Phoenix.
So I would just reiterate what Vince said, is that we are part of the Phoenix Metropolitan Statistical Area. Phoenix and Scottsdale are the price setters for compensation for public employees. We're the price takers. Cave Creek are the price takers. We have to compete with the same people. Looking at towns that are far away from us, that are the same population, that is just one factor. What is the population? What's the commerce? What is the geographic area? Those are all that's all important information. But at the end of the day, we need to be able to attract people from this area. So we can't say that another town is offering a 25% less for a certain position in town when it's 100 miles away. That doesn't matter. We have to deal with the reality of where we live today and the competition within this area. It's pretty clear. Thank you.
Okay. Having heard, thank you very much, all who contributed. I would entertain a motion for adjournment.
I move that we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Thank you all for sticking around.